We, the jury, find the defendant, Orenthal James Simpson, not guilty of the crime of murder.
Princess Diana dead.
Oh, she died. Where's the remote?
Biggie Smalls was also embroiled in a rivalry between East and West Coast rappers. His competition, Tupac Shakur.
Tonight's getting enormously supported. Oh, this is outrageous.
I haven't got AIDS. I'm HIV positive.
Hello, and welcome to Time on Grapple Patreon. I'm Matty.
I'm Gareth.
I'm Liam.
And joining us for his debut here on Time, he's filling in for JP for a one-shot deal. That's all we've agreed to for so far. It's none other than Benno. And Benno, you've been gagging to get on here, mate, and you're finally here. Are you happy to be here?
Big fan of the show, guys. Really excited to be on. You know, first time, long time. Yeah, very excited. Got the big intro there. Feel like a guest in someone else's house. I'm not gonna knock anything over. I'm gonna be sat here in the back, enjoying time as I always have. It's yeah, boss to be on.
I feel like we've got to make a wish here. It's so checked.
Well, usually I'm like hovering around in the background while you're making time. Like I'm in the background of StreamYard, like sneakily watching the show, or like if you ever notice in the corner, there's one live YouTube viewer. Yeah, that's me. I'll usually tune in. That's how excited I am for time to come out. But yeah, I know I've got big shoes to fill for JP, but I'll do my best.
Oh, I'm sure you'll do him justice, Benno. And if anyone who has never listened before, this is our regular visit back to a specific period of time. And in this episode, we are going back in the time machine to April 1998. Bill Clinton's in the White House. Tony Blair's in at number 10, guys. It's that era we always talk about in wrestling terms. It's just that attitude is there, that part of life where society's like rebelling against authority and stuff like that. But we usually start off with where we were. So since you're the newbie, Benno, what was you up to in April 1998 in life, mate?
I feel like this is going to be Time Young Edition because we're outnumbering Gareth this time. But usually it feels like, as a long-time listener to the show, there's a hard split. So there's the Matty and the Liam half, and then there's the Gareth and the JP half, and things kind of match up. I think we're outnumbering you for this one, Gareth, as I will answer in the famous words of Matty. I was in school. I was 13 at the time. I even managed to get my mum to send me over a picture that she put on the Discord today of me with a ginger middle part around roughly 1998 or so. So I've aged myself there. But yeah, year 9 I was in, Matt. That's where I was. Couple ahead of you. You know, very into the NWO Wolfpack, playing a lot of GoldenEye N64, reading a lot of Mailbox. That was my life in 1998. That's where I was.
Yeah, well, I was in year 7, as you say. You're a couple of years school-wise ahead of me there, Ben. So I was, just started secondary school, that big jump. It always seems like it's enormous, that jump, doesn't it? When you're from primary to secondary school, it's like...
Do you remember the years distinctly? Because I was thinking that year 9 puts an immediate thought in my head of like a certain history class that I used to do and like the geography group I used to be in and stuff like that. There's very distinct eras, I think, through those years for me.
Yeah, well, it's just one of them as well. Like my school, secondary school, was like a few miles away from the house. So getting the bus at 11 on my own, mate, it's like it wouldn't happen these days, but you know what I mean? I'm literally getting the bus from Park Road, like, well, obviously no one will know that, but like it's about 3 or 4 miles maybe, just a lot of bus stops anyway. And like nowadays, it's unheard of. People are getting dropped off at school and stuff like that, but different times back, and it fits in with that society, Gareth, doesn't it? Of like, we're saying this, how old was you, mate, at the time? We'll throw it to you next.
This just suddenly crossed my mind last night when like I knew Benno was coming on in JP, and I thought, oh, here we fucking go.
What year were you in, mate?
I was so young. I was in second year university. Just finished the summer grafting on a building site while you were playing with your toys at home and that, you know, like using the money that I'd earned to like be out around Liverpool. But no, this is second year uni, living at Egbert, just there, Matty, just down the road on Eggy Road. We maybe cross paths or something.
I probably passed you on the 82 bus when I was on my own, thinking, who's that lad in the phone box? That's what I was probably thinking.
Well, yeah, no, this is classic times. This is the old, this is the same year as the famous phone box picture that we took and things like that. Yeah. So it's this is where I'm at in life. young, free and single, bit of money in my pocket. The world's your oyster, isn't it?
Only money I had in 1998 was when I purposely walk home from Crosby to Little on the school and not get the school bus, just so I could save up for the end of the week to go to the shop and buy magazines. Like that's how I made my money in 1998. That was how I did it. I can't remember how much the bus was, probably like 20p in 1998, but you could save those 20p's, you know.
Well, I remember
you know what you'd love, Matty? You'd have loved the shoulder length hair that I had at this point in 1998. Unfortunately, no phones, no cameras. You know, like literally, I've maybe like one set of photos for the entirety of 1998 because you know you didn't have photos back in the day when I was a lad. So there you go, lost to time. Unfortunately.
Is that your Eddie Vedder years, Gareth? No, well, Liam, are you going to be, you're obviously more in mine and Benno's court here, mate. What
I reckon Liam was smoking at the back of the school bus. That's what I reckon. He was one of them cool kids. Up there.
12 years old, so second year of school, that would be, wouldn't it? Secondary school. I was starting my enterprise, which was quite a good one at the time, is that I would ring the Power Slam hotline on a Tuesday morning, find out what happened on Raw and Nitro, then go into school and charge the other kids in my year 50 pence to know what happened on Raw and SmackDown. And over time,
I fucking graph that, Liam. I love it.
And over time, that money would be saved up, like Benno would say. You know, you add in your dinner money, so you go throughout the day not eating. You know, original intermittent fasting before it was cool. Save your money up, buy a magazine or something with what you've saved, you know, not having lunch, not catching the bus to school, walking for about 3 hours to save £1. Selling Finn Martin stories to your friends. It was a good time.
I'd have loved doing my school. Like we could have set up some kind of business because I was doing it. For me, it'd be like, I'd get the cheapest thing at dinner because you could get like a plate of chips for like 10p or something like that in my school, which I can't believe the dinner ladies had served me that. That was my full dinner I'd have on those days. But like, I'd be right with you there. I had mates who'd just ruin it for fun. Who'd just be like, I watched In Your House Beware of Dog last night, and they'd tell me what had happened. Turn it into a money-making adventure. Matty, you'd be right there for that.
Oh, mate. Hell. I was going to say, Liam didn't know Mean Gene was an inspiration early on.
Well, to be fair, I may have had to give some refunds out when Yokozuna didn't show up in the NWO. So I'm blaming Power Slam and Meltzer.
You were off school for a week. You were feigning sickness for a week there, Liam.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of people didn't believe King Mabel was going to join the NWO. But, you know.
Hey, that was Big Dave giving that information, Liam, not just you. Right.
I love this because Matty loves you enough anyway, but now hearing that grift, he just loves you even more. I didn't think it was possible for Matty to love you anymore, but now he's getting a bit of coin for that. Like,
if we all knew each other, Gareth could have made it a legitimate business as the grown-up of the group. Why be hanging around with us might be a little bit suspect. Matty would have his hand in your pockets, and I'd be giving you tips, Liam. I could have given you my old tip about going to the local Mega Bowl and doing a collect call to the Power Slam hotline and doing the call for free because they couldn't. You could. When you used to call people on the Mega Bowl public phone, you could hear them, but they couldn't hear you, which was fine if you were calling a hotline. Could have saved you some money there. We could have had the world to rights there. Could have been a great little business.
You know what to say? If you're not a smart man, surround yourself with smart people.
We could have been the Dave Meltzer of the UK. We could have all grown up, you know.
Boys, what's this? We could have. We can be. We'll talk after we
are.
Yeah, we are.
That's what I think.
No, right. Well, that's took care of what we were doing back at the time, and also listeners will also know it's the 4 pillars we dissect of life. We call it, don't we, guys? It's it's TV, it's music, it's movies, and it's Benno's favourite sport, which we haven't given you this episode, Ben. We're nice to see it on your debut here, mate. But we're going to start this month. We're going to start with television. Usually goes on near the end, but we're going to give it the big build this month. And I'm going to be leading the way on this one. Liam's put me in charge first, Liam, so I'll handle the first pillar. And we're going to start off with, JP, in tribute to JP as well. We all know he's a big soap guy. So we're not going to start with Eastenders, though. We're going to start with his favourite of Brookside, guys. Now, this is the episode where the big, I made up when I seen this, when Liam, who always puts these lists together so amazingly, shout out to you, Liam, all the time, mate. Love that, what you do. The gas explosion, mate. When I first seen them 2 words, I was like, yes, let's have this. And you know what, Gareth? Take it to you first, mate. Proper dramatic, full on. brilliant episode. This, enjoyed it throughout its entirety, mate.
This is just like classic Brookside. Like I think this is one of those where it's like it's probably like past its peak at this point, but it was still like able to maintain that level of drama and things like that made Brookside what it was, and just like made it just stand out as just being a bit different, almost kind of like the ECW of soaps in some way, sort of thing. That was just there at the side with some of the storylines.
Oh, big Vince Hale asleep on the couch there. Sorry, video viewers. Ron Dicko.
But just buzzing off this. I was just buzzing off Ron Dixon in this episode, like, because obviously there's been like a gas leak and things, and fucking dopey Ron Dixon gets woken up and saved in the gas leak, and like, what does he do? Goes and turns the fucking lights on and blows the whole of the fucking shops up and everything like that. Like, just absolutely hilarious, like for this episode. But it's just littered with classic characters. Like, even at this point, you know, where you're talking and you're like looking through, everyone's involved. You know, you've got Katie Rogers there, you've got like Jackie and Max stuck in the flat, you've got people like, you know, like a Rachel Jordash in there, even like in the background. You know, you've got Mike Dixon just like hanging around in the background and things like that.
Explosion though.
So, yeah, you ask where I was at this time. I tell you where I was, in Bar next to Mike Dixon every fucking week. I don't know if Bar by the time in about 7 years' time when you lads started to go to town was still a thing, but used to buzz off that, the old Brookie stars in Bar.
Still a thing now.
But,
yeah,
I've got like a cousin. Yeah, like I've got a cousin who, like, when she turned 18, it was like, oh, you know where we're all going? We're going to Bar. Like, she discovered it, and I was like, I bet you I had that attitude when I turned 18, and I bet you had that attitude when you turned 18. It just goes through the generations. But cheap shots, mate, always a winner.
But Gareth, in this though, mate, you're saying like we start off hot, literally, with the explosion, and that's the big spot. No, because just before it goes to the break, you just get that even bigger spot of it just explodes again, doesn't it? Because it's still the Ben. Is it? I wasn't familiar with Ben. This character, was he just a few week character that obviously in here just to get killed off? Because
do you know who he is? Tinhead's brother.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Is it Tinhead's brother? Yeah. Oh, right, okay. Did not. Oh, look at the selling there.
Look at him here. He's not that fat, is he? I was surprised by how not that fat Ron Dicko is here. But this was one where I tried to watch this in bed last night, and Sarah was like, "You've got to turn that off," because for the whole episode, the fire alarm's going off in the background of the episode, isn't it? She was like trying to get to sleep, and there's just this fire alarm going on for the whole episode, doing her head in. But it was good. Yeah, I just loved it for some of the stuff here. You had like Jackie and Max here, where like Jackie was the surrogate mum for Jackie and for Max and Susanna's kid there. So, but that was before. Then you had like Max and Jackie getting together there, which was a class storyline, because obviously Max and Ron Dicko always had like a feud for years. So that was a good thing there. But the one for me that I loved about this episode was Greg Shadwick, just
babyface. It's proper babyface, isn't it?
Like people talk about Brookie and they talk about the big characters, and you obviously go to Barry Grant and things, and it's Sinbad, and it's people
Mick
get
Johnson.
into people Mick Jono and stuff, and then but like Greg Shadwick, when he came in, he was like fucking Steve Austin riding into town or something like that at this time period. Like, he was proper top babyface.
Housewives' favourite as well. Mark Monaghan. Oh, mate, he was like the pin-up, really.
There's a brilliant line in this when the fireman goes to him. He goes, "Are you the builder? Is it that obvious?" And he's there. He's like, "You stick shit, fucking flat." But this, I think this episode is just so tense. It's like a Scouse Uncut Gems or something. This is there's like no let up to it whatsoever. It's just like going. And I tell you what it reminded me of at the beginning, when the explosion, when they're going for the parade, and
here's the big spot though as well. Sorry guys, there we go. Microwave through the window. At
the beginning, when it's like a one shot zoom throughout the whole parade, it's like, you know what it reminded me of? You know that scene in the first season of True Detective when they go to the trap house and they chase it? It looks exactly like that.
That's where they got an influence.
I don't think Phil Redmond was, planning on rewriting the television history books for years to come after this, but some of the stuff he'd done on it was stuff you didn't usually see in soaps. And, I always felt Brookside was shot differently to other soaps.
Yeah.
I don't know if it was a case of budget or just a case of method of how they would do it, but it always seemed like a less obvious TV show, if that makes sense, in a way, the way the camera work was done and stuff. And I think this episode's perfect to show that.
It's got that Channel 4 aesthetic, hasn't it? Massively, where it's like we're not EastEnders, we're not Coronation Street, we're not BBC One, we're not ITV. How can we be different? How can we be like, as JP always say, like the art house soap? How can we be like the IWC soap? Right down to the music. That's the biggest thing when I put this on. I was like, I watched all three of the soaps we're going to talk about in a row. I was never a Brookside guy in my youth, but Brookside would always be the one as far as theme music goes. It had that going for it as well. But it's the more grown-up, polished kind of production side of it, I'd say.
And that was the day it died, was when, can you remember the change? Like, I don't know what it was. Was it the cameras or whatever? Yeah. It became like, it looked like Doctors or something like that, in terms of the way it was shot and things. But
Channel 5.
Loved, this was... Honestly, like, watch this, and I was just like, I just want to watch the next episode and the next episode.
Gareth,
I was just dragged back.
I said to Steph, we're not looking through like fucking HBO or not, and we're gonna start watching years of fucking soaps now in Brookside. That's what we're doing in bed, not watching like normal TV shows. Is this because I'm gonna be full fanboy on this show, but is this like is this a famous one? Like, I'm not. It's funny, when we used to do like Spotlight, and Joe and JP would be going back forward with Brookside references. As the Scouse one, I'd be the one playing catch up. It wasn't something that was like a big part of my viewing, but so it was like a big episode, was it? Yeah, this is one straight away that's why I was made up when I seen it on the listing. It was April. Like, yes, yeah, and it was like, this is a big episode. As Gareth said, it's probably past its peak, isn't it, Gareth, like you said? But they always had these big episodes in them when they'd make this big deal. I think this was one of them where it was like on every night of the week as well. Yeah. So it made it extra special, didn't it, at the time? So the proper build.
Always and even
Lindsay as well, and even Peter's still knocking about here. Like Kylie, that storyline of like, where is she? And it ends on that good cliffhanger to make you tune in tomorrow night. It's Bookham 101, isn't it? It's proper stuff.
Yeah, and this is almost like a Royal Rumble or something like that, because you didn't get this many characters together
exactly.
in one thing. So as well, it just like, it had that like big time vibe about it. This one,
Oh, absolutely incredible stuff, this, guys. But yeah, if we're going from the seriousness and the epicness and the drama of Brookside, then we're going to go across up the M62. We're going to the cobbles of Coronation Street. And guys, I've got to start off with with the big storyline of this. It wasn't the pregnancy. It wasn't the absolute like horrorness at the end with the baby. For me, it's Jack and Alex. I mean, talk about going from one extreme to the other in the soaps. Even in this episode, like I've just said, their storyline of Jack can't have a ciggy or he owes him 50 quid. I mean, come on, Gareth. This is just comedic gold, isn't it, mate? Come on.
Oh, awesome stuff. I was like laughing my head off throughout this episode, and I was just like, this is just back like. I used to always say Corrie was the funniest show on telly, and this was just like the epitome of it. At points during this episode, that whole Alec Gilroy and Jack Duckworth stuff, that's like just I'm
fantastic. Shocked Alec was still there in '98. I thought he was welcome.
Trying to coax him in to like have a ciggy for 50 quid. Like sat around in the writers' room. What have we got? What have we got for Jack and Alec?
Unbelievable. You're a fan of Corrie, Ben, in general? Was you a Corrie guy?
I always thought of Corrie as like it was the one my mum liked, and I almost kind of thought of it as like the boring adult one. I almost thought of EastEnders as more of like the EastEnders felt younger. It felt more, I don't know, it just felt more relevant to me. It wasn't quite, it was like EastEnders was the one that everyone was talking about, at least at my age. Corrie was definitely second. Emmerdale was like a third, and then, like I say, Brookie was on the side. But yeah, I was always more of an EastEnders guy than the Coronation Street guy. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the setting. I don't know whether it's like the people. But yeah, I always would have favoured EastEnders over it.
See, that's
sorry, I've got a butt in here. Sorry, while he's on screen, Gary Mallett dressed as Marty McFly here. I thought it was a nice touch for time. Sorry, Liam.
No, I was going to say, it's strange to hear Benno say that in terms of enjoying EastEnders. There's always been a thing with soaps in terms of like Coronation Street being northern and EastEnders being southern, north-south divide. Do you think it was a case of romanticising like London to a degree, like seeing EastEnders because being in Birmingham, I mean, I never really deviated to either. I mean, I was probably more Brookside than anything else.
And we'd be like not fully Manchester, but like they're Wolves to us, aren't they, Matt? Like the Coronation Street side of it, it's like if anything, London's that little bit cooler. It's kind of got that more of an edge, I'd say.
Well, did anybody else know that Jim McDonald was a Toronto Blue Jays fan as well?
Where's he got on that?
No, you know what? I've got written down, boys. When I seen Big Jim, I actually shouted Big Jim at the telly. I couldn't help it.
I like this episode.
Oh, he is just unbelievable. But there it is. Look at the big showdown. Look at this. It's like Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Look at this. Look at it. But I was saying there as well. You're saying there, Ben, about like it being the older one. I think for me, watching this episode, this had the absolute like blend of, you had like Vera and Jack, and Alec was still knocking about. Obviously, Barlow's there and Deirdre. But meshed in with that, like, the younger demographic. Adam Rickett's a big part of this one. The Battersbys has just arrived. So it was, in it, Liam, it was kind of like that blend of the two eras clashing here for me. That's what I
felt like something on purpose, that, didn't it? Like they're trying to go for that. Am I right? Like, did Eastenders have a slightly younger audience? It felt like Corrie were trying to get a bit of that during this period.
Yeah, they always had Bianca and Ricky and stuff, didn't they, to lean into, and Sam Mitchell was younger back then. So this was Corrie's go at getting that, like, teen audience, wasn't it, really? Yeah, there you go, Ben. That's why we've got you here, mate. So we're talking demos and all these...
Digital spy forums will be going wild for that, tell you.
But what else did we make of this episode, guys? I mean, it ranged from the comedic to the... What did we make of that ending? I was shocked, like, at that. I mean, didn't know what to make of it, to be honest, Liam. It was quite heavy, wasn't it?
It is. And I think if you look across all three soaps that we see, without going into EastEnders before we get there, it was all in the midst of big storylines. They were putting their big stuff out to compete with each other. And I think the end of this was very much the same with that as well. And also the other main through storyline with this, with Deirdre. Sorry, is Ashley Peacock's fifth there the most 1998 going to the club look that you've ever seen? Citrus coloured shirt, untucked, the boot cut jeans. That has to be a Ben Sherman. It must be a Ben Sherman. And I'm willing to bet he's got brown squared toe shoes on to get into the club as well at the bottom.
The haircut as well, though. It's the haircut.
But just going back to this, the other big through storyline with Deirdre in prison. Yeah, you cannot overstate how big of a storyline that was. Not just in soaps, but I mean in general. Across, like, it was front page of newspapers. Yeah, a fictional storyline was front page of newspapers. Frida Weatherfield won. Yeah. You know, it was massive. And here we coming up here, a legend for you guys, is she?
Margie Clark. Tyrone's mum, innit? I thought she'd come into the show, but
I'm more familiar with the good sex guy, Matty. But you know, if that's what she's famous for,
I knew you would be Liam, mate. I knew you'd know that, mate, off by heart. But you know,
obviously with the Deirdre thing here, like, just pause on it there. Just if you get chance. How old, lads? How old's Deirdre? Yeah.
Oh, you throw us in here, Gareth. I'll go. She's younger than you, mate. That's what I'll go with.
I'm going to go, I would say 49.
You go, Ben?
46.
Well, just for the benchmark, I am 45 currently.
46 for me.
This destroyed me last night when I found out that Deirdre Barlow on the Frida Weatherfield one storyline was 43. I'm older than Frida Weatherfield one, Deirdre Barlow. Honestly, that finished me off last night.
You know what? You can, as Liam said,
it's the glasses, I think. Makes it look older. That's all it is.
You can't underestimate the power of this, because I remember being in class, Liam, and lads in our class would be writing on the back of the chairs in front of them, "Free Deirdre Rashid." That's what they'd be writing on every back of school chair. It was over. It was an over storyline. And, like, honestly, John Lindsay, what a fucking heel, Liam. Big time heel he was, mate.
Big time heel. But yeah, this whole
thing I read. in doing a bit of prep for this, like I was reading our old haunt, the mailbox letters page on Paramount around this time, and there was a lot of back and forth about it there. And apparently, like with the different tabloids fighting over who managed to convince the writers to get it out of prison, and it was apparently it was always planned to be like as long as the story was, but literally there was campaigns of them all trying to go get it out type of thing, as you said earlier there, and like it ended up being a fight over who got credit for it when it was probably written down on paper like from the start the way they were always gonna go.
It just shows you, doesn't it, that there's politics and everything, Benno, like we've discussed. But I also would got to mention as well throughout this before we move on, Ken and Mike. I mean, it's what feud in wrestling's that, guys? That's been going on for like 30 years. I mean, that's the one. And even in this, like when Daisy does get released, like Mike's done all the hard work. He's loaded. He's got the lawyers to get it out. Look at Ken, how cheddar he is when she says, "Oh, I'm going to go and stay in Ken's house." But Mike gets that big kiss, doesn't he, later on in the Rovers, and Alma fucking hates that. She fucking hates that. But just, it's one of the greatest feuds of all time. And the way they even ended it later on when Mike died in Ken's arms, and his last words was, "She always loved me, Barlow." I had to make sure I mentioned that feud because it's just so good. Gareth, come on, you got to greet me on that, mate.
Oh yeah, it's Dusty and Flair.
Yeah, that's perfect. It's the everyman versus the loaded man at the time. Yeah, 100%.
And just before we move on from Coronation Street, with Benno being on this episode, I thought it'd be remiss not to mention the ratings for this episode.
Go on.
17.1 million watched that original showing.
Fucking hell. Unbelievable.
Is that a third of Britain? It is, isn't it?
Yeah, not far.
That is insane. And I know we had Sky and cable and a lot, so we only had 5 terrestrial channels, didn't we, as well? Just unbelievable stuff, that, boys. But Liam, I hope you've got the ratings down for the next one we're talking about, and that's EastEnders. Going on here, boys. Now, go on, Benno. You can take us on your EastEnders run through here, mate. What did you make of this one?
I mean, I vaguely remember this airing. Like, the thing that stuck out was the open with Pat stood in the background, like that dream sequence. I was like, I fucking remember seeing that. And it was like a fever dream watching this, because it was like, shit, I remember that character. Oh, I remember that character. Oh, I remember Phil and Grant fighting over this. And like, there was so many little things. It was like things I'd forgotten and knew going on during this one. But again, talk about like ratings grab, like you say, it's an hour episode. And I almost remember that being a big deal at the broken, as you said, Liam, the half an hour barrier to go for it and do this big feature episode. And it's literally we're fighting an entire episode over like Kathy, who I think maybe as a kid I would have just thought, oh yeah, that makes sense. The Phil's after her, Grant's after her, the priest is after her, everybody's after her, and then you watch as a grown up and go, okay, that's she's the target of all these blokes' affectionate. Oh, sorry, Matty's got an. I was more of a Cindy Beale kind of guy, but like
we've got a big fan on the panel, haven't we, of Kathy Beale?
Oh, do we?
Oh yeah, we do. Do you want to unveil yourself, member of the panel?
It's more JP than anybody else, isn't it?
Oh, okay.
Sorry, it is, yeah. Sorry. I had Gareth down, so I apologise, Gareth. It is JP. It is JP. But, yeah, I mean...
She's just dirty to me, like about her in car laybys.
Well, she's still in there now. She's still knocking about now, like what? Nearly 30 years later. And look at Pat there as well. I mean, Pat looks well there, doesn't she? Bloody hell, I cannot remember this one at all, Benno. Like you saying you did, I did not remember this at all. No, mate, I didn't. But I mean,
Pat's a classic character as well. Pat just reminds me of my Auntie June. All my aunties are like my family at that point. Like she's so like, I don't know. She's an every woman, isn't she? She kind of like fits that. She's got like that aura of like she's got star power, I would say, Pat, in like in a strange way. She's brilliant for like this particular sequence that's on screen now.
What did you make of this one, Liam?
It's a weird episode, isn't it? It's a really weird episode in the way of the beginning of it. the way it's shot, seeing something before the theme music is completely alien for EastEnders, isn't it? I like just having this, this dream state sequence here. It's nothing you would expect from EastEnders. At the end as well, the most useless fact I'll probably bring up tonight is that the ending sequence is the longest period that theme for the closing credits of EastEnders has ever been played for.
It's always, it's always a big episode when you hear that theme in the background for like a couple of minutes before or a minute before it bursts in. It's always a big time, like proper all-time iconic like episode when you get that, a big time episode. Look at Barbara Windsor here as well. I mean, she was like a Benjamin Button again. She looks younger the older she gets. Barbara Windsor, didn't she? Like, bloody hell.
She's funny, Barbara Windsor, though, because it's like, I remember like around the time, I got a distinct memory of EastEnders winning some kind of award. I don't even know what like award show it was. And, when they'd wheel out the entire cast and they go on stage. Yeah. And I distinctly remember, like, she'd probably only been in it about 3 months, but she was the leader. She was the big star. And as a kid, I don't think I necessarily understood why that was and why she already had like this British legend status, didn't she? But she's one of those people who came into the show, was immediately a main eventer and remained that way the entire time. Yeah. And it was like, oh yeah, she should have always been here. She should have always been the focus of it. And I think she's like, this episode's a good example of it because she's the linchpin of it. She's the one driving it along. She's the one, needling Phil, needling Grant. Like, she's such a gigantic presence more than anything here. And obviously, the older you get, you realise that's because of her history and because she is, a much bigger star than everybody in it, but she comes across of it as well. She just jumps off the screen.
Yeah. Quite a few pop stars in this episode as well. I noted Sid Owen, reggae star.
Good thing going, Liam. He's got a good thing going.
Martine McCutcheon, obviously. Who else did we have?
Most famous for being sick in Mick Hucknall's dreadlocks. And making him have to cut his dreadlocks off. Great stuff, Martine.
And I don't know if anybody else noticed, but a bit of a cameo appearance from Claire Grogan, who used to sing for Altered Images. That's like showing my age here. I see Gareth's the only one nodding. I don't know if I've done a reverse Benjamin Button here.
No, but this is, but also, boys, you're saying there, like, I always, whenever I see old episodes, I always say EastEnders is like that Christmas one, like everyone seems to end up watching. It's got the most old stars that are in it now, modern day. You know what I mean? I know it's an easy one to bring back an old character. I mean, wrestling does it, doesn't it, all the time? But EastEnders has took the piss doing it, though. You know what I mean? All the time. And noticeable on that Christmas one. But I did read, is this right, Liam, that they're actually killing Phil Mitchell off? Is that legit, or was that an April Fool's? Did I get work there? Or is that a real thing, do you know?
No, I did read that as well. I don't think it's going to be... I don't know. They'll hold out till Christmas if they're going to do that. You would imagine, wouldn't you? But just to mention on this, I know this episode was billed as Kathy's last appearance in the square. She did re-emerge and reappear in EastEnders in September 1999. Her and Ben returned. Obviously, Ben goes back into storylines. But the big departure of this episode is Cindy Beale, who this is her last episode until she comes back recently. Yeah. So she was out the soap a lot longer than Kathy was.
That's it. That's
wrestling, isn't it? Loser leaves town.
Yeah.
He ain't leaving town.
He ain't leaving town at all, and that's that covers the soaps. Then, guys, we had a good got mixed of all different types of storylines and emotions watching the soaps. Which in its prime, that's what they done. That's when they were good. That's what the aim of the actual shows were, and they got us all hooked, all 17 million of us, for that Coronation Street. But we're gonna move on now to a show that I've always wanted to cover on this, Liam. I've always been. Always hammering at Liam, can we do a year? Can we do an episode? When we get an episode of, I'm sure it's one of our favourites all around the panel, is TFI Friday. So we've got this making its debut on time. And Gareth, this, for your age as well, mate, this would have screamed you at the time. I'm sure this was appointment viewing for yourself, mate.
Oh, when TFI Friday turned up in like 1996, it was so different. It was like nothing that you'd ever seen on telly before, and like it was that mix of just this like I I think this idea of kind of like blending together like real people and celebrities, like it was almost something that had like never been done before in this way. It's almost like a precursor to like what you see a lot with like YouTube and social media and podcasts and stuff like that, you know, in a way that you had these people who were like production people, backstage people and things like that, people who worked in the local shop and stuff like that, who were suddenly made stars because of like TFI Friday and the way it was presented, but then intertwined with getting these like big names doing interviews and like for a time period, certainly like 96, early 97, having like really the top hottest bands kind of thing were like performing like on there like live, and this this idea that obviously it was on twice on the Friday, so you got to watch it live early and then you could watch it like later on, like when, so you were getting two audiences there of people before they went out, or you're getting people like when they came back and things. It was just pitched perfectly, and like I think probably by this time, I think it was sort of jumping the shark a little bit, I think, by this point, or maybe a lot. I think it had probably had its run up to 1998, but I think the impact that this had on probably society as a time, and then maybe on the way that like media was used and portrayed going forward, like Christ, it was so different. This you're getting people on, you're interviewing them, and you're not actually talking to them about anything. They're not on the shill and things like that as well. They're just chatting absolute shit with Chris Evans kind of thing. And then you obviously got all these like hangers on and sycophants in the audience clapping and cheering along to like everything that went on around it and stuff. It was like, if you think about like mid-90s and you think about Britpop and you think about Loaded magazine and everything like that, this was almost like everything just like rolled up into one, just like on your TV screens.
Well, would it be to say though, Liam, you'll know more about this than myself, is this like the follow-on from The Word, isn't it, where The Word was on late at night, so it was like get home in time, you've been on the ale, get home to watch The Word, whereas this is the opposite, where it's get on the ale early because of that culture, Gareth, like you're saying, that lad culture, that get the pints down, watch this, then get out a big night on the town. I think that's what obviously the appeal was. Am I right there, Liam, with that?
Yeah, I would agree. It was very much the natural successor from The Word, I thought. As Gareth says, the thing that always stands out to me with TFI Fridays, how many musical performances I remember from it. And that's very similar to The Word as well, that I forget a lot of The Word and I forget a lot of TFI Fridays, but there's so many musical performances that just stand out that you remember seeing on this. I think this is probably past its peak, this episode. At some points, I thought it was a bit cringe. And I don't think I ever really bought Chris Evans. I know he kind of done the proper run, radio, breakfast TV, TFI Friday. Then they gave him that game show, Don't Forget Your Toothbrush, which was like the big Channel 4 like Saturday night show. And then he kind of did Top Gear and whatever, and then went back to radio. So he kind of worked his way up, which I can't criticize him for that, but he never really appealed to me. He was always, I always thought he was a little bit out of place around this time, away from like Big Breakfast and stuff, but I was younger, so Gareth probably saw it differently. But I do think seeing TFI Friday now, it is so very indicative of the time, from the bands to the guests they have on there to like the talking points. I know this is slowly coming up to the lead up to France 98, it would be, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
In terms of the tournament. So football starting to like bleed in and like a football culture and whatnot going into the summer. But I thought it was a good episode, but not one that I would say is one of the big TFI Friday episodes I do remember.
I pictured it as like... Oh, go on.
Sorry, no, I was just going to say, just to Liam's point there, it's almost like with Evans, I think it was almost like there's kind of almost this like false everyman that he's trying to get across to this, where like he's doing the stuff with the guy who works in the local cafe, and he's doing the stuff with like the people, the man on the street almost kind of thing, and he's
chippy owners.
Like, he's almost presenting himself as he's alongside them, but there's that sort of almost like arrogant, I'm better than you,
looking down at them
kind of thing, which like never sat right with me. Like right back to that time, I never, same as Liam saying there, I never took him as credible, kind of like you know, and he always felt like he was trying too hard. Like it was around this time that he was probably like he was out on the piss with Danny Baker and Gaza, and like you've got like Jimmy Five Bellies showing up here, and it always felt like he was social climber, trying to be that kind of like cool guy when actually he was just some fucking loser from Warrington.
You're watching it going like he's there holding the foot. He's like, I like footy lads, honest. You know, I'm one of you. Like it feels very that. Like I was gonna say there, like it's been brought up, but it feels like it's like the later night equivalent of Big Breakfast in a lot of ways. Like I always remember going to like I think Big Breakfast were filming in Liverpool for some reason, and like just as a kid, not really understanding how TV works and thinking like the atmosphere there was real and was a shoot, and then getting there and realizing all the lads and ladettes in the background doing the way, hey, doing all like the laddie stuff in the background was just fellas with headsets on who were like purposely doing it to like give it the reaction. It's all very stay managed and such, and not as like as real as it seems. Like, and that bleeds across here as well, and you can tell. Like, I can imagine, like, because I was never the right age for it, but I can imagine like my older cousins and stuff getting ready for the big night out, watching it, and being like the girl with a pint glass in her hand and type of thing, and like it fitting kind of that aesthetic, but it. Again, it just feels like if you pick beneath the seams, he is just like middle class wanker trying to play along and trying to be like part of that. Goes along with that having is this around the time he's going around with Billy Piper, who's a bit younger than I suppose it would be around then as well. And
definitely just, around this time.
It's all very try hard, isn't it?
Well, go ahead. Sorry, Liam.
I was going to say it did feel like at my age at this point, it did always feel like it was the word I was allowed to watch. If I was never allowed to watch the word, it was almost like a sanitized version of the word, so I could watch it, but it wasn't what I wanted to watch. It was the one I was allowed to watch, whereas the word had this like pedestal when he was like, oh yeah, the crazy stuff they do on the word. Whereas TFI is, we're going to do some crazy stuff, but we're not going to go too far unless Sean Ryder appears, obviously.
Unless, of course. No, but I was going to say, following on from you saying about the music, Liam, like, it'd be so random because this is before my time with the internet, especially, and like I remember episodes where like it'd just be, oh yeah, this band, we've got them flown in straight from America, they've never done a UK performance. It's Slipknot with Wait and Bleed, and I'd be like, what? You know what I mean? Made up to see them. But then we go to this episode, like you say, Liam, and who do we get as the main event? We get one of Gareth's Cooler Shaker. But right, Gareth, right up your street, mate, these.
The single worst band of all time, like getting the headline slot here. And if I was watching an episode of TFI and thinking like, yeah, I'm watching an episode that's jumped the shark, like this was it, because like, you know, like I say, in that sort of 96, 97 run, it felt like everybody who was hot, either UK or USA, was getting like a gig on TFI Friday. I've got, you know, I think I've still got it in the loft somewhere, like a VHS that's proper like hit record when someone was performing live on TFI, and then, you know, like just collect them kind of thing. So you had these live performances. By this stage here, when you're getting into the fucking realms of the Mighty Mighty Boss Tones, and then the fucking headline act to send you home is Cooler Shaker, fucking Crispin Mills, like, fuck off. Like, you know, it's almost like the punctuation point is, this show's dead.
but like I said, how much of a reflection of society at the time TFI Friday is, even at this point in its run, is that I do think it's very indicative that someone like Cooler Shake is on this show, whereas Britpop is transitioning. We're transitioning out of it. So bands like Cooler Shaker, who have probably come at the back end or have garnered their fame at the back end of the likes of Blur and Oasis, have achieved the fame, but they're a genre that nobody cares about anymore. So they kind of exist because nobody else is within that bubble anymore. That's where their popularity comes from. And I think there's a few things across the board of what we do in this episode is going to show that I think society was very much going through a transitional phase in terms of 1998 doesn't necessarily have its own identity. It kind of has a bit of what came before and a bit of what is to come.
Yeah, because even Oasis had just coming off the year before their third album, Be Here Now, isn't it? So they kind of, and that's when they kind of like are on a bit of a downslide, isn't it, Liam? Really, to be honest, I know it would have sold mega millions, but it didn't get criticised. A bit of thrown ass, I think, isn't it? That
Well,
one.
I mean,
I think
some people could argue they were at the bottom of the slide before they went down the slide, but that's just me.
Yeah, fair play. There we go.
It's not just you.
Fair enough. But no, before we get on to the main event of the TV with the game shows, guys, Liam, can you give us your detailed and expert analysis on the TV show that was axed after 9 episodes by ITV in Ice Warriors, mate? Because I'll be honest, I've never fucking heard of this one.
Yeah, a bit of an anomaly, this Ice Warriors. It was ITV's attempt to follow on from the success of Gladiators. At the time, Gladiators was died out by this point. I don't think Gladiator, it may have been, but it may have been a very past its prime Gladiators. So they tried a few similar game shows, activity-based more than anything, to fill the Saturday tea time slot. This was one of them that I remember, Ice Warriors, which was presented by Danny Bear, and I think Danny Bear is featured in every episode of Time that we've done.
Right for the show as well, Liam.
She's had a spotlight named after her as well, so she's got the full show.
proper grapple luminary, Danny Bear. But yeah, this was cancelled after 9 episodes due to falling ratings. It's a weird watch. It's very difficult to find much of it online, but it is a weird watch. It's all set on ice. The teams are all based around areas within the UK, so it's not an individual competition. It's like 5 people from Runcorn versus five people from Coventry on ice. So I don't know how it necessarily appeals to the greater TV watching public on a tea time on Channel 5. But yeah, it's an interesting concept, but I think if people wanted to watch a iteration of Gladiators, people would be watching Gladiators, and the ratings of Gladiators wouldn't have fell to the degree that it needed to be completely recreated. This is something that you file in with the world of celebrity wrestling, Knights and Warriors. Does anybody remember that? Knights and Warriors, which was a game show as well. There was also another one as well with John Leslie when he was like a snipe. I initially thought it was Gary and it was a celebrity episode with chefs, but yeah, just a weird TV program all round. As even if you look at the advert break, sponsored by 7-Up as well, so there was a lot of hope. Yeah, there was a lot of hope for this, but it died out to the degree that I don't think anybody else on the panel remembers this at the time. That's how small it was. And it would have been something that was catering to us at the time.
Like, if you'd have told me it was like BBC's attempt at a rival to Gladiators, I'd believe you. It feels like definitely that. They've had success with this, so let's do it. How are we going to do it? It's on ice. It's a bit like that Simpsons episode where like they make the Night Boat spin off of Knight Rider, and like the problem is like, well, how many things can you really do on a boat? Oh, there's a little slipstream to get away. It's like, how many? Like, you've limited yourself. How many people are there in the world, or in England at least, you can get? It's like, yeah, you can be on our show, however you need to be able to skate to like pretty much a professional level. You've already narrowed it, haven't you? And then like the actual Gladiator equivalents, there's only so many of them, and then basically from what I can tell from watching this, every game looks exactly the same as well, because again, you're on ice and there's only so much you can do. It's just like, it's a complete new thing to me. I'd never seen it before. I can imagine the production room that made it be creative, but like, again, like you said, that would have been the perfect age to try and get into this, and it doesn't ring a bell at all, Matt.
You're saying that about like being able to, I mean, Danny's doing well on the skates here, lads, to be fair to her. She's going to get on the skates when they be interviewing, but yeah, this is one, like, as I say, I agree with Benno. I'd never heard of this at all, and you nailed it, Ben. If I would have seen this written down for the first time, I would have said, that was definitely on BBC, that, not ITV.
Yeah, we need our own one.
Yeah.
But maybe I'm remembering this wrong, but around this time period, being 1998, is it just me that thought there was like a massive surge in popularity of ice skating? That like everybody would go to ice skating, like a Planet Ice on a Saturday night? Or was that something that always existed? I just remember all of a sudden that ice skating was a big popular activity. Like, I think bowling had like its day as well in like 1997 when everybody went bowling. for a night out. I seem to remember ice skating being a massive thing. That I don't know if they just like renovated a load of Planet Ices around the same time, so everybody wanted to go ice skating, and then just this tried to cater to that surge in popularity at the time. Maybe I don't know.
Well, can I ask the big question to us all? We'll go through it dead quickly. Can any of us ice skate? Because I can't. Anyone else have a go?
Roller skate either, mate. I've got many memories around this time of maybe not ice skating, but going to the roller rink and like just hanging onto the side and being too scared to try. I'm one of them kids.
Liam, I can imagine you to be a dab hand on the skates, mate. Come on.
No. Anything that involves balance, I'm not good at. Roller skating, roller blading, ice skating, anything like that. Tightrope walking. I'm not one to do this sort of stuff. No.
Okay.
Why? It's as Benno says, it's hold on to the side until you see the nearest gate and then disappear into the bar. Come back out 5 minutes.
I don't know. Watching.
Disappear out 5 minutes later. I go, yeah, I've been on the ice the whole time. That's very much the mentality when I go ice skating.
What about you, Gareth? Did you have ice rinks back in your day?
No, they didn't. No ice rinks in Cumbria, mate. It was just like it'd just be like running off at a frozen lake or something like that. If in the middle of winter, that would be all we were doing. But when Liam was saying there about that, I was thinking like there's a lot of people from Liverpool that you talk to, and they talk about like going to D-side to like ice skate, but like I don't ever recall anyone talking like that I've known in Liverpool talking about like ice rinks in Liverpool. I think I've only ever been once in my life, and I've always had a bit of a fear of it, to be honest. I don't know if it's like I think I saw an 80s like horror film or something like that where somebody fell over and then someone skated over the fingers and cut all the fingers off. So I've always had that in the back of my head that I've always thought that can happen. And then for the longest time I thought, oh, that can't happen. And then some fucker got ice skated in the neck, didn't he? Like playing ice hockey this year or something like that.
Oh, bloody hell, yeah.
And did he die or did he nearly die or something like that? So now I've been put back off the thought of going ice skating.
That's also the reason I don't go paintballing, because I saw PJ and Duncan and that bike throw episode, and ever since didn't think it happened. The other thing I was going to say about this show as well is like the other thing about it is just it's purely like TV executive going, okay, we're going to do Gladiators, but like the characters aren't big enough in Gladiators, so everyone in it's like a Power Rangers villain, aren't they?
Yeah,
like they're just full on like amateur dramatics. I could have, if I'd had seen it as a kid, I would have just thought it was the least fucking cool thing ever. It came across that way, didn't it? So lame.
It was there in the palm of their hands. They're trying to marry sport and they're trying to marry characters and storytelling. They fucking cancelled World of Sport like 10 years earlier. Just bring it back, lads. Get the wrestling on.
No, because we'll end, as I said, we give the big build up here to the we'll end on the game shows in tribute to JP not being here this month, and we'll do it as a 1-2 combo. We'll talk about them together. You picked two crackers here, Liam, to be fair to you, mate. We've got two all-time classic game shows of Catchphrase and Play Your Cards Right. None of this Mulhern shite. We've got Roy Walker in the hot seat hosting this one, Liam, and we've got Brucey himself hosting Play Your Cards Right. Two classic game show hosts, two classic game shows, mate.
Oh, absolutely. If I was doing my top 5-to-1 game shows, I think both of these would be in this. Starting with Catchphrase, Roy Walker only for me. Nobody else. Roy Walker only. That's it. Minute Roy Walker finished, the Catchphrase ceased to exist to me. Well, again, as we say about all these game shows that we watch, particularly Catchphrase, such an easy concept.
Yeah.
But an easy concept done well, and an easy concept that is carried by the host. That the epitome of this game show is the hosting, is Roy Walker. He is the identity of the show, sort of thing. And I don't want to be that old guy who says game shows like this don't exist anymore, because I know there's even a version of Catchphrase still airing. But it's just like, it's a game show that caters to everybody. Like, I can't imagine a family sitting down and watching the current iteration of Catchphrase all together on a Saturday night. But I remember I would sit down and watch this and with the family, and we would all take something different from it. If someone was enjoying Roy Walker's jokes, like my dad would be like, oh, he can't do his best stuff when he's hosting Catchphrase, but I've got a video of his when he played like the Circus Tavern something, and it's great, sort of thing. And, And then, other family members may watch it and go, oh, I just want to see somebody do well and win the prize money. Somebody wants the competitive aspect of the game itself. I think game shows in general are great in terms of being that epitome of family viewing that I think has been lost over the years, that game shows are put on such a grandiose scale that it's got to be this massive event. When I think some of the best game shows and some of the game shows we talk about on here are the ones that go, it's a simple concept, done well, and that's the secret behind it. And I think Catchphrase is one of those.
But
the beauty of it as well, I was going to say, there's no right answer. Well, there is a right answer, but it's kind of made up. So it's perfect argument fodder. Do you know what I mean? Because it's not an exact science. Because you see, even in this episode, there's a few of the guesses that I feel like are more dead on than what the actual answer is. Because it isn't just a straight up quiz, is it? So you can literally, I can picture my household as a kid. Or so me and our Peter throwing, bad kid guesses at the screen, my mum guessing, my dad guessing. It was a proper communal thing type of thing. And it didn't really rely on any real knowledge into it other than maybe knowing a few like common phrases and stuff like that. That's another reason why I think it translated so well. And it was such a fucking easy watch in its day.
But as Lee, I've got to say with Lee in there, it begins and ends with the host of me. I mean, just look at him though. Like the threads on him, like custom made head to toe. The guile haircut off Street Fighter and Walker. Military
he needs the America tattoo, doesn't he, on his mouth? Yeah,
he's just one of them. You can imagine he smells great as well. Full bottle of like goat hair or something at the time, living it up. But it just comes across when he's that opening like little montage he does to the he just oozed it, didn't he? Everyone says about it, the answer, what is it? It's good, but it's not the one. For me, that's not his catchphrase, Lee. And for me, it's 5 seconds. Here we go. Every time we're in on the, what did he call that round with the bonus bank one? That's the catchphrase. That's the t-shirt should have been made for that for me, mate. Love Roy Walker. Love this show. Up your street, Gareth? In general?
It's like a classic game show, isn't it? And I think to me, like one of the things that stands out about when you look at something like this and you look at some of the shows that we've done, like on previous episodes of Time as well, is like what makes these things is normal people. Like look at Jeff here, kind of thing. Like just normal man, kind of like that ain't
25 him, Gareth,
It's my younger brother. That's how it's made. But that ain't happening these days. Everyone who's on telly has got to just look a bit like polished, or they've got to be someone who wants to be famous, or they've got to be somebody who's there's somebody who's a friend of the production team or something like that. This back in the day, it was proper. This could have been the bloke who lived next door to you on your street is randomly on your telly on like a Saturday night on something like Catchphrase or on Play Your Cards Right or on Bullseye or whatever kind of thing. And that's the charm that I think's lost in a lot of this stuff here, is that it did genuinely feel like this is just like a normal person. And if they win a grand, like, boss, how made up would you be to win a grand if you're just like a normal human being kind of living life? Like, it doesn't need to be £1 million. It doesn't need to be something like that. It's just like, oh, brilliant, we'll go and have an holiday or something like that.
You know what's even better? When you won the round the world trip and say Jeff had won like $2.5 grand. Spoilers in this one, anyway, folks. He loses. He gets to the big catchphrase and he fucking shits himself and misses out. But usually when they did win, it'd be like, you've won a round the world trip. You've won 2,450 quid that you won earlier on, and I'm going to throw another £2,000 in. It weren't like they weren't like, cheaping you. He'd add more money in, so it made that like thing of like, well in, you're all celebrated when they won. Whereas nowadays, you want everyone to fucking lose, really, don't you? And he's like, yeah, come on, And it was good. It was, as you guys have nailed it, it was that family element that I think's missing these days. You know what I mean? So yeah, 100%.
I think just before we go off this, I think one of the main differences with these game shows that we're watching on Time and Now is that there's an element of embarrassment now with game shows. Is that if you're a loser on a game show, you must be a loser.
Yeah.
Shown as not achieving. Whereas you watch something like this, watch something like Bullseye, if you lose, there's that empathy by the host going, oh, well, you might not have won, but as you say, here's 50 quid, you know what I mean? This gets you home, your BFH, you know what I mean? Whereas now it's like you get gunged or you get thrown off the side of a building or something. just to hammer home that you've lost. There's no, oh, you're the loser of this, just walk off. That's not allowed anymore, is it? It's like you're being made an example of. And then once you do that, you're taking away the everyman that wants to watch it, because after a while it becomes just cruel humour, doesn't it?
Yeah,
got it. The only negative for him is when he got home, he definitely got in trouble with the wife. Got a little bit flirty with Mel. He did there. He was getting having too good a time. You know, when the wife watched this 9 months later or whenever it aired, like he was sleeping on the couch that night.
Jeff was on the grift early though. He was selling Tamagotchis, mate. He was fitting right in. He was well on that. Fucking wild, them Tamagotchis. But anyway, we're gonna throw it right over straight away to Play Your Cards, right, guys? Another classic game show. And Brucey, you know, got to be on the Rushmore of game show hosts, hasn't he? Surely, Brucey. And this was another one. How simple. It's one of them I use as an activity in my shoot job, guys. We've got a big pack of Play Your Cards, right cards. It gets dusted out once a week. It's just so easy, as you guys have said. The concept of these shows, anyone can get involved and anyone can play, Liam. It's brilliant, isn't it?
Yeah, turn it on. You're flipping the channels, turn it on. You know exactly what's happening. You know exactly what the rules are. There's no massive thought needs to go into it. You need the whole thing explained to you. But yeah, Bruce Forsyth, the pinnacle of game show hosts for me. Just the top. I mean, everything he does, sing, dance, play to the kids, play to the old dears, just like the epitome of what a show host could be, like appeal to everybody. There's no weakness in his game whatsoever. And even for somebody like me at this point who wants to be like a contrary, you know, figure to everything, I can't dislike Brucey, you know what I mean? And even if he's not for you, there's that appreciation of how good he is at what he's being asked to do. It's just, he's great. He's the best for me. He's literally the best.
You agree with that one, Benno?
Definitely. Like, he was one even as a kid, I loved. Like, despite the fact he's very clearly an old man, and you're about to tell me he's 28, but like, it was just exactly that. He was the one I look forward to. He was the one I'd imitate with the fist pose and all of that. Yeah, get us the age, but he was like still going until like pretty very late on. Like Ian, he looks like you'd look at him and go, he's probably on the wind down here. How many more years did he go after this? At least a decade, maybe longer. Like he was knocking rap proper, like appealing to everyone, and that's what a great game host does. I was going to say the same thing before as well. You've got to appeal to every generation, maybe specifically, you know, the mums and the nans demo. I think that's probably the most important. See Barrymore, but like, yeah, it just he's the one. He's the Hogan, I'd say, of the presenters.
Do you want to say, boys? Sorry, Gareth, I've got to give the age. 70 years of age. Brucey. So he's he's 70 years.
So when did he stop? Like after this? Because this is
he was doing because he was doing Strictly.
Strictly,
up to late. Yeah.
He passed on in 2017 when he was 89. Okay. So it's 70 years in showbiz, guys. I mean,
but just to show how big of a star he is, he's one of those game show hosts that you would watch it because it's Brucey rather than what the game show was. It was, I'm watching this because Bruce Forsyth is so good. You could literally have him like sit in a field and make a game out of it. Yeah. But you would watch it because it's Bruce Forsyth, because of how good he is, and he would make it work.
And also, Liam, he's that big of a star. He's synonymous with not just the one game. It's Playing Your Cards Right. It's Prices Right. It's Generation Game. He had a lot going for him on that side as well. Both channels, done ITV, done BBC, covered all the territories, didn't he, Bruce? He done it all. But he's
you said, Matty, about like him being on the Mount Rushmore. He's got his own mountain.
Cheers there, Gareth. You're crying there, mate. I love it.
Legit though, he has though, and like you talk about that, like I love to use like that thing of like authenticity. He was a big star. He was somebody who like carried power in the TV world and things like that. But he didn't patronize. Like he was relatable. Like he felt like he was like empathetic to the people, like who were taking part in the games. He was somebody who was like playing to the audience, and he was like going along with it with them as well. Like he just, you know, he could turn to everyone. Absolute legend, one of a kind.
But even like the gimmicks though, like with the when he's adding up all that, isn't it? Where he knows he's getting told in his ear, just the little sly ones. And also I love about him as well. Obviously he had a wig, but he had a wig for like every type of hair. So he'd have that short wig when he looked like he had his haircut. He'd have the other one where it looked like he needed his haircut. He played the wig game as well, lad. If you get on there every time, look at this. Just over the ears needed trimming. Next episode it'd be short around the ears.
Doing the Paul Weller here this evening.
No, well, guys, that we ended on a high there, guys, with the television. That moves us on swiftly to our next pillar, and I will hand it over to you, Gareth. I'll literally throw you the rugby ball. I was passing you over there, mate, and you're going to take us through sport next, my friend.
I am, and I mean, we're going like into a time period here that was like real transitional, really, when it comes, and obviously Premier League had come in the early 90s, but I think it was around this time period that the Premier League was starting to kind of like get a bit of steam really behind it. You know, the money was there. You're starting to get like some of the big name stars from around the world, maybe past the prime sort of thing, but coming to the Premier League a bit more. It was starting to feel like the money that was there, but it was where the culture of football was changing a little bit more, and this is where you had Arsene Wenger obviously coming into Arsenal as a foreign manager, which was something that was very, very different. Like for people, these days, it's no surprise. But the vast majority of jobs in the top flight in England were still very much British led from that time period. But Arsene Wenger came in, and he probably was one of the most influential people on the way that the Premier League has gone really over this time period, with the introduction of the style of football that he played, but not only that, the science and things that went behind it, kind of almost like stamping a foot on the British culture around drinking, thinking about diet, thinking about things like the science of sport and things like that applied to it as well. And obviously this was a year that Arsenal won the double, so I'm sure that JP is kicking himself that he's not here to talk about that right now. But it was a big one, and I know it's one that you've got memories of, Matty.
Oh, 100%. This is that. It's the iconic as well. I love it. It's the Steve Bold chip over to Tony Adams, isn't it? Can you believe it, Tyler? Like, it's iconic half volley by Tony Adams. It's all that against Everton, of course.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, of course.
just rubbing it in there. But it's that. You're right, Gareth. He changed the way, like, it will become to this day and age, and this is why he's got a job now, hasn't he? As like isn't he like a director for FIFA? Is it or UEFA? It's one of them, isn't it? He's influential high up to this day, Wenger. And don't get me wrong, I used to fucking hate him when he was a manager all the time. Didn't see it and all that. Couldn't stand him. But you can't deny the influence and everything he brought to these Isles. Like it wasn't the double. I remember was Anelka, is Anelka popping about this season as well, isn't he? And just coming through as a young kid, and obviously Bergkamp's there, and Vieira's a monster at this time. So it's, as you say, JP is definitely kicking himself here, and we've got to do him justice. Benno, any memories of this for you, Benno? The Arsenal double winning team.
Massively, because like, and the other thing I remember about this period, I was saying about playing games, FIFA 99 came out this month, I realised, and like that was the one with Bergkamp on the cover. Like I distinctly remember that. He was bigger than football. He felt like a big celebrity player. He felt like the biggest star the league had at the time, and like Arsenal have always been like that for me. They've always been, for me, like I won't say it when JP's around, but like they were like the second team. They were like the cool team kind of to like, especially like during this period. Look, I was an Evertonian. We were barely scraping staying up this season. We were, I think it was Coventry that went down on goal difference. Oh, we drew one over Coventry.
Gareth Farley's volley in it. Yeah.
Over Bolton. Yeah. Like we had to take our wins where we could take them during this period. Fucking, a lot of negative. Howard Kendall's third run for Everton at this point as well. So I would say that to JP, Arsenal felt like the baby faces during this period. They couldn't quite be United. It was never going to be Liverpool. So I never really begrudged their success around here.
What about you, Liam, as a young baggy? Were you looking onto the Premier League here and fondly in the direction of Arsenal, or the opposite?
Well, I was probably watching more of the Premier League than I was watching Albion at the time. Albion were going through a bit of a change. They went through 3 managers this season from memory. I think they started with Ray Harford and ended with Dennis Smith at the end of it. But they weren't much to speak about at this time. I think this is one of the seasons Lee Hughes really came into prominence. Would have still been League One, First Division, wouldn't it? Back in '98, is that right? Yeah. So there wasn't much going on, but I do remember a lot of the Premier League around from this. I think something I took away watching this is the amount of iconic kits of Premier League. You know, JVC for Arsenal, Newcastle Brown Ale for Newcastle. Everton was 1-1. Was it?
1-1.
Yeah, 1-1. Yeah.
1-1. You know, so you watch
a little bit of yellow.
Gone to 1. Hopefully, like if that referee had done his job in that Bolton away game, you'd have been gone to 1. You watch a lot of these, and a lot of memories come back. Even the managers as well, like character managers. You know, Vialli was at Chelsea, Hodgson was at Blackburn, John Gregory was at Villa. You know, Roy Evans was Liverpool. Is that right at that time?
Yeah.
Obviously, Kenny Dalglish was at Newcastle, so there was a lot of stars on the sidelines. Then, anybody want to have a guess who were the top goal scorers this season?
Is this the freeway guy? Is this the freeway one, Gareth?
It is.
Is it?
Can you get him, Matty? I know him off the top of my head.
Is it Michael Owen? It's Michael Owen, isn't it? Dion Dublin. And is it Chris Sutton?
Correct.
Yeah, okay, yeah. And there was Dion.
Obviously, Michael Owen's one of the big ones, and like he was really kind of like establishing himself at Liverpool here, and like on some of the footage that we looked around, especially like this particular month in question, April 1998, that we're looking at here, just really, kind of a prominent time period for him as well. And there was the big game at Old Trafford that I remember to this day, where Owen gets a goal, but he also gets sent off, sort of thing. And like at this point, it was very much like kind of presented as the blue-eyed boy, and he was this little kid and things like that. But then you got that nasty streak that came in there, where he went right through the back of someone and got sent off. And
was it Gary Pallister, or did he just rinse Pallister, or was it Schmeichel? I know he rinsed Pallister for the goal. He
rinsed Pallister for the goal. I can't remember who he fouled.
I'm sure it's Schmeichel. I'm sure he goes in on Schmeichel.
Oh, that was another game.
Was it? Yeah.
Yeah. Because I think that was later on. But obviously, it was later this year that he then sort of cemented himself on the world stage as well, wasn't it? With the goal against Argentina in the World Cup as well. But as a Liverpool fan, Matty, thinking about Michael Owen, where does he sit to you? Is this like a time period that you sits warm in your heart? Is he someone who's in that upper tier for you when it comes to Liverpool strikers?
He's obviously clouded that with obviously going to Man U number one, but get over that. If we're sitting by the phone when you've just been released and no one wants you, and Man U were one of the best teams, phone you up and Fergie phones you up, you're gonna do it, aren't you? Let's be honest. You know what I mean? I probably would, and you're getting paid as well, Gareth. You know me. You're gonna probably do it, but it's not even that for me. I just think he's so shit as a pundit now, Gareth, and he's boring.
Isn't he?
He does me head in. That's clouded it more than playing for fucking Man United, to be honest, mate. But he'll always have that Arsenal FA Cup final from 01 in the bank for me. We got destroyed that day, and then he just pops up with 2 goals in the last 5-10 minutes. He always have that in the bank, and he won the Ballon d'Or at us. So there's pros and cons to it, but I do think he gets hated too much for me because he was brilliant for us. I know he got Mr. England and all that, doesn't it? It was all the Mr. England stuff, but he done very well for us.
What about as a blue, Benno? Was he a player that you hated more than others, Michael Owen?
To an extent, but like I'm with Matty in that I hate him more in later life because I hate him as a pundit. When I first started podcasting, somebody once commented on an Indie Corner episode saying I sounded like a less posh Michael Owen, and that drove me fucking mad for about 3 years. It motivated me to be a better podcaster. I know, but it's his weird wool accent as well. In the time, I remember because our Peters are red, so we're the the prototypical Scouse household where the older brother's the blue and the young brother's the red, and he loved Michael Owen, so I probably hated him a little bit for that reason as well. Our Peter had always have like the Michael Owen top and that, but I knew he was great too, so it was kind of like, during this period he was a horrible days as an Evertonian, so there was always just that tinge of jealousy. Michael Owen's knocking about, and we've got pictured on screen here. Danny Cadamartri's our great hope. Franny Jeffers the year after. That's all we had kind of had going at the time. So there's that part of it too.
Can I just go in?
We won
this, by the way. I was going to say Cadamartri won us that too.
Fair, yeah.
I distinctly remember that big moment. I thought we were onto big things. There's a few players like that who popped in, like Cadamartri here, and obviously Jeffers the year after. The biggest thing for me is watching them going like fuck. They all like Nick Barmby is in the Everton squad at this point. Nick Barmby was still playing. Like feels like 6 years ago. Like not that long ago. Like he was still playing for teams because like that's like you say the change in thing in like. Mentality in the Arsene Wengers of the world and all of that. Like a lot of it's like wrestling, isn't it? Where everyone's career isn't like 6 years in the 80s. It becomes your Dolph Ziggler's. Is that what I've nailed on here? Like your Cadamartris and your Jefferson, that or your Dolph Ziggler's and your Miz's and your Kofi Kingstons. Just stick with Nick Barmby playing in the Premier League in like 2017 or something daft like that. It's I think that's the equivalent.
But can I also throw two other fucking reasons why I hate Michael Owen as well, or not fondly? I don't hate anyone, Gareth, not fond of him. Or is that film shout? Like, he looks at us as film fans, and like, why would you waste your time watching films? No, you're the prick who's only ever seen 2 films in your life, not us, mate. No, I hate that. And then the other one is like...
Do you know who else said that, Matt? Do you know who else said that? When WCW Magazine asked him, Chris Benoit. And you know what happened? Just saying.
And another reason, they're not even going there, Ben. But the other reason as well.
Stay out of that weight room, Louise Owen.
Do you remember, what was it, Liam, you remember Michael Owen's soccer skills that was it on Sky, that?
Yeah, is this the one with Neville Southall?
Mate, have you seen the videos? They popped up on Twitter where he's literally 4 yards out and he's volleying these goals past like 8-year-old kids and he's fucking happy. He's like, oh, you can't get near that, son. It's a full-size fucking goal, mate.
You can imagine him, can't you? You can imagine playing with him as a kid, and he'd be the spoilt knobhead who everybody knows is going to make it, but he's a little fucking twat about it. Like,
yeah.
Bad that, like, yeah, but anyway, they're other reasons why I'm not fond of Michael Owen. Liam, you a Michael Owen guy?
No, not really. I never really had any association to him with club or so, but it's just boring, isn't it? It's just a boring person. And then you see the players that played around him at the time, and they're just like, if you wanted to go on a night out with David Ginola or Michael Owen, it's a pretty easy choice who you're going out. If you want to go to Birmingham with Mark Bosnich or Michael Owen.
I mean, would we make it back in one piece with Bosnich, though, Liam? I mean, top character Bosnich, like, but this is it, Gareth. This is the era, as you say, mate. With all, like Benno saying, Arsenal. I was always a Chelsea. I love Chelsea because they got for me, the international stars and like your Di Matteo.
Money is what you need to say.
Yeah.
Nah, but they're the embodiment, really, of what I was saying originally, wasn't it? Where talking about like you're getting the stars who are coming and you get these odd ones who are like smattered about. So I think on this month we saw that like Attilio Lombardo was like managing like player coach at Crystal Palace at this point, and you had like. Obviously, like other big names, coming in and like littering through the league, but like it was Chelsea really who kind of like started the movement, wasn't it? With like Gullit came in, and then Vialli came in, and Di Matteo came in. Like you get to this point where you've got Gianfranco Zola, and again that was another one for this month was Chelsea's Cup Winners' Cup semi-final. Obviously, a trophy that doesn't exist anymore. So I don't know if that means that Everton have never won a trophy in Europe or not. I don't know. Benno maybe clarify on that one. But they'd lost the first game to Vicenza in the first leg of the semi, and then come back and won 3-0 at the Bridge. And you look at this, and it's like the people scoring the goals in this game. It's like Poyet. It's like Vialis setting up Zola. It's like Mark Hughes popping up with a volley, like where he's like, obviously at that
Sparky
stage,
Hughes, like great finish that. Great volley, Gareth.
Great volley, and like obviously English teams are back in Europe, and it took them a while to get back on the winning trail on the reg kind of thing. But again, this Chelsea team, like full of stars, full of European stars, felt big time. Winning a cup like this in this time period as well.
You know what else was big about it? That this tournament was strictly, this is Channel 5 Jonathan Pearce era, like full on to the max. Like, remember that final? Because Zola gets dropped for the final, doesn't he? And then he comes on and he scores the winner, doesn't he? In the final. So that was like big in itself. That Zola weren't playing. He went with Flo, didn't he, Viali? And put himself in, obviously, as well.
Yeah,
put himself in for that. But, as you do, fuck yourself today, get on the card there. But it's also that semi-final, he said, Gareth, that cross from Viali for Zola. Look, obviously Zola not being the biggest guy. What a pinpoint cross that was, and what an header from Zola. Like, love that goal, mate. But it screams Thursday night, Channel 5. Jonathan Pearce, before he got toned down when he joined BBC, just saying whatever he wanted. No scripts on Channel 5. It was not even bullet points with Pearce. It was just off the cuff. When he first come out, I did nothing like him. I used to absolutely love Jonathan Pearce. Brilliant.
Yeah, glory days. But there's obviously other sports going on at this time in 1998, and big one was the boxing, and I'll hand over to our own Gareth A. Davis.
Maybe the most offensive thing anyone's ever said to me.
Success. That was what I was going for.
But no, quite a few fights happened this month. Quite a few big boxers were fighting this month as well. But I've just picked out one fight from the time, and it's an often forgotten classic. It's Chris Eubank versus Carl Thompson. Now, I'm sure everyone is familiar with Chris Eubank. This is a period in Chris Eubank's career where he had lost to Steve Collins, he had lost to Joe Calzaghe, and he had retired for about a year and a half. He came out of retirement to fight Carl Thompson because they wanted to build up a Chris Eubank versus Johnny Nelson fight at cruiserweight. And Carl Thompson was probably not the biggest name, the biggest star, but he was a proper cruiserweight in terms of size, a durable fighter, and a good fighter as well. So he came up against Chris Eubank, and Chris Eubank, fighting a guy who's naturally bigger than him, really had trouble in this fight. Eubank has moments of success. He knocks down Williams in the fourth round. Thompson, sorry. He knocks him down in the fourth round, and he looks like he's on the verge of winning, but just the unwillingness of Carl Thompson to quit as he just suffocates Eubank almost to a point that Eubank can't keep up with him anymore, being a naturally bigger guy. This is very much the end of the Chris Eubank everybody knew. After this, Thompson wins this fight, but after this, they would have a rematch where Eubank is stopped for the first time in his career. Eubank, always known as having an absolute granite chin that nobody could really crack or knock down. They had a rematch after this where Eubank's eye closed and the referee stopped it in the corner, and that was Eubank's last ever fight. But the biggest story of this is it's Chris Eubank, and I know Matty said this a few times about how British society never embrace boxers or sports people who are good. They have to wait till something happens to them. They show a vulnerability, they lose, or something goes against them to fully get behind them. And I think Chris Eubank, after losing to Calzaghe, after losing to Steve Collins twice, he went from that unlikable, arrogant guy that would show up on sports panel shows to this almost pantomime character that everybody wanted to will on to win. And it showed such a shift in how people saw Chris Eubank.
Yeah.
But it would be very remiss to not say how good Cole Thompson was that a lot of people forget about him. He never went on to like big world honors or so. His last he probably lost to everybody good that he fought, and he's probably his biggest claim to fame historically is that he was the first person to beat David Haye.
David Haye, I was going to mention that.
So he's a name that not many people outside the British boxing bubble would necessarily know, but within that era, he's somebody of importance that I think a lot more people should recognise for what he did in Britain at the time.
Oh, that's it. But didn't you mention Johnny Nelson there? Didn't Johnny Nelson beat Thompson though? Didn't he?
Yeah, Johnny Nelson beat Carl Thompson a couple of fights after this, because in an roundabout way, this was an eliminator fight, Johnny Nelson, and it kind of got delayed because they had the rematch with Eubank. But yeah, one of the worst stoppages you'll probably ever see in a boxing match, that Carl Thompson being stopped by Johnny Nelson. But Johnny Nelson was a good boxer in his own right. He was a boring boxer, but he was a good boxer in his own right. But people will recognise Chris Eubank on this show. And surprisingly, looking back on this, Chris Eubank versus Carl Thompson was not the main event of this card. Nassim Hamid was the main event on this card. So he kind of showed where Chris Eubank was in his career at this time, because this is the same Chris Eubank that was headlining Old Trafford against Nigel Benn at one point, is now co-main event to Nassim Hamid headlining. So it did show that. But of this time, I think everybody, or especially us on the panel, is aware of who Chris Eubank is and just how he transcends boxing, and one of the true stars that boxing had in the 90s in this country, that even up to this day, you can put him on anything and people go, that is Chris Eubank.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. No, definitely. And my big reveal on this one is that as soon as I saw this one on the list, I was fucking delighted, because not only do I remember it, I was in the fucking building for this fight. So while you lot were fucking playing with your Duplos, I was having a few pints and out for Chris Eubank this night, because he was my favourite fighter throughout the 90s. Like it just felt like kind of like omnipresent for me. You know, even like right back to like he fought Gary Stretch. I don't know if you remember, like really early on, but it was like on ITV. Obviously, you're going back to 4 channels, so when there was like boxing on and things, you watched it more than obviously you did at certain points. But right through from the first Ben fight and then into like the Michael Watson fights, that obviously there was like tragedy involved with that, to the Collins and the Ben stuff. Like he just felt like the guy for me. I just loved watching him. It was that perfect blend of someone who was like a brilliant boxer, but had the character and things like that that went along with it. It felt like I was watching pro wrestling when I was watching Chris Eubank at this time period. And like you say there about like the main event of this one being like Nassim Hamid against like Wilfredo Vasquez for a belt there. Like Herbie Hyde was on this card. Ricky Hatton was on this card. That was a fucking, like, what a night of boxing like that was to be in the building for. But this one is just bored into my brain, because as a big Eubank fan at the time, when he rocked him in the 4th, and then I think he rocked him again in like the 5th or the 6th, he was there to be finished, and he just didn't finish him. And I don't know if it was like the delay because of like the retirement and then the return, or whether it was age, or whether he just, I don't know, like I felt like everyone in the building was urging him on, and he just didn't go on. And then like he ended up like losing the fight on the decision, because sort of Thompson just ground him to the end. But this is like one of, like, you know, when I think of like sporting events that I've been to, this is like an all-timer for me, this one. And that fight is absolutely the, you know, like punctuation on it. Like seeing Eubank, albeit not at his prime, but very nearly pulling out what kind of felt like it probably would have been an upset at the time, with like jumping up a weight class as well, like with this. But it's fucking, when you put that list on and I saw this, Liam, I was just like, yes, couldn't wait to watch it again.
Brilliant.
Any thoughts?
Hello, any thoughts, Ben?
I'm the fan Liam was talking about, where like I think I'll heard the Chris Eubank after it, like by the point he made it like to my consciousness, he was way past the point. Same goes for like a Prince Nassim Hamed. Like I was like that tippy top level of star you'd have to be for me to have heard of you, unless you were unless Vince McMahon was promoting you on a WWF video in the 80s. I didn't know any boxers, so yeah, it was never for me. This,
I think personally for me, it was growing up young in this era. You were either a Nigel Benn guy or you were a Chris Eubank guy.
Yeah.
And I always think the gravitation towards Chris Eubank for me was he was pro wrestling, wasn't he? In an era where wrestling was everything to me. Someone like Chris Eubank, who had the same theme music every time he walked out, would wear the same trunks, was recognisable, was the guy that, you know, would rile up the crowd when he wanted to, would play the sympathy when he wanted to. He was pro wrestling, and I think that's why it appealed to me without probably knowing it at the time. And, you know, after that came Nassim Hamed, who took a lot from Chris Eubank, but he was the complete opposite. I couldn't wait to see Nassim Hamed lose, you know. Yeah. He was the heel for me, Nassim Hamed, because I was like, I remember Chris, you're doing what Chris Eubank used to do. I don't like you, sort of thing. So, yeah, it's, you know, subconsciously how pro wrestling clouds your judgment on stuff without you knowing it, especially in such a young age as well.
Oh yeah, big time. And look, you know, that's the same. Sounds like a very familiar story with me, because as much as I loved Eubank, I just wasn't a Nassim Hamed guy at all, and for like very much the same reasons.
He was very much a heel, wasn't he?
I love Nassim though. I love watching his videos.
Ina Kamosi, when I hear that song now, like it just like I think of him and it just turns me off.
Is it Kevin Kelly where he's sitting? He just beat someone, Liam, and Kevin Kelly comes out the crowd and they're both sitting on the apron and he's literally just sitting. They're literally hugging and he's down his ear. I'm gonna spark you clean out. It's the best shout ever, Liam. Love Nassim for that.
What's the famous line in that? I'm gonna smoke your boots or something. Yeah.
Love it, mate. Love it.
Oh well, we've got one more sport on the list for this year, and it's the NFL, and it was the NFL draft in April 1998 as well. And this is a bit of an old timer, really, because you had two quarterbacks who were very much up vying for first pick and second pick in the NFL draft, and you had Peyton Manning, who was obviously like highly touted at this time period, and you also had Ryan Leaf as well, who was someone who people were predicting big things for the future, and it was a very very tight run thing. People were questioning who was going to get picked first on this particular draft, and this was one of those drafts where it felt like it was almost like very much all about the quarterbacks as well coming through there. And what we ended up having here is this is the year that Peyton Manning was selected first pick in the NFL draft. He went to the Indianapolis Colts. He became a MVP for a record number of times in the NFL. Won 2 Super Bowls, one with the Colts, one with the Denver Broncos. And then you had Ryan Leaf, who they fortunately didn't pick first because he got picked second. And to say bust is not the word when it comes to Ryan Leaf. It's 4 years in the NFL and he was gone, like 2 years with the Chargers before he quickly moved on to the Bucs and the Cowboys. A short spell at the Seahawks, but this is someone who was drugs came into it, burglary came into it, bit of jail came into it, and you look back retrospectively and you go, yeah, all right, you had the head-to-head here, and you've got the All-American boy and Peyton Manning there. You've got Ryan Leaf, the opposite end of the spectrum, coming in there. And unfortunately for the Colts at the time, they made the right pick with their first draft and picked an absolute all-timer in Peyton Manning, who, yes, is had a lot of success in terms of like records, in terms of passing yards, in terms of like MVPs and things. Probably someone who didn't win as many Super Bowls, like his playoff records, probably doesn't live up to the quality of a quarterback that he was. But there was no way under the sun that Peyton Manning was doing time anytime soon, and he wasn't going to be fucking breaking into your house to get cash to buy drugs or anything like that either way. But one that probably flies under the radar a little bit more, who be a bit closer to Liam's heart, I'm sure. A good old Raider there in Charles Woodson. While this draft was all about the quarterbacks, you had Charles Woodson there, cornerback, Heisman Trophy winner, but not in the mix here for first or second pick. But the Oakland Raiders picked them up, who obviously your team, Liam. So somebody who would go down with you as a big time player, probably for your fandom.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, Charles Woodson is probably my favourite NFL player ever. One of the rare recent drafts that, well, I say recent, it's 1998, but one of the more modern drafts where the Raiders got their pick absolutely right. This whole draft is just littered with absolute stars. From that first round, 4 of the players have made the Hall of Fame. Peyton Manning, Charles Woodson, Alan Faneca, and Randy Moss, who's no doubt close to Gareth's heart. He's probably one of the greatest wide receivers of all time as well. But it's a strange thing for people who are not familiar with the NFL or don't watch the NFL, what the draft is. It's an investment in potential more than anything else. And if you look at the pick the Indianapolis Colts made and the San Diego Chargers made, taking the 2 quarterbacks, 1 and 2, it's a decision that can just shape your franchise for years to come. Luckily, the Colts made the right decision, and after the first few seasons, Manning didn't necessarily hit the ground running in his first season, but after that, they were always contenders. They were always there to contend. If they weren't making the playoffs, they were close to it. If they weren't winning playoff games, they were there or thereabouts. Whereas the Chargers picking Ryan Leaf really set their franchise back quite a few years, because you've got such a high pick in the draft. You've got to make it count, because you're investing a lot of money in a player, and you hope that you don't have to pick that high again in the draft because you've made the right pick with your number 2 draft pick. So just looking at the 2 different trajectories both teams went on with the picks in this draft shows the importance of it. And as I say, for people who don't follow the NFL or are unaware of how the draft works, it's really wild to think that so much of your team is based around your draft picks. You know, free agency, whilst it exists in the NFL, you're not going to build a winning team in free agency. It's all about picking right, cultivating the right talent, and choosing the right players that are going to be difference makers for years to come. And there's been a lot of drafts where teams have got it wrong. I mean, the Raiders, first and foremost, are probably one of the biggest casualties of the draft, investing in players and them not coming to fruition and having to completely rebuild their roster to make it financially work, because players that have invested most of their money in have been washed out. But yeah, this is one of the great drafts of all time, this in terms of the players that come out. I named off the 4 Hall of Famers who came out of the draft, but just players, just good, solid players in the NFL that come out of this draft as well. You know, someone like a Kyle Turley, who was a tackle for years, Fred Taylor, who's synonymous with the Jacksonville Jaguars, probably the Jacksonville Jaguars' best player, Keith Brookie, great linebacker for the Falcons, Jason Peters, defensive end. A lot of good players come out of this draft, and a lot of teams really did build for their futures through it.
And I mean, you mentioned Randy Moss there, and been someone close to my heart. Picked at number 21. It really does just show like the idea that like a high pick doesn't mean that it's the best pick kind of thing, as we've sort of like demonstrated with Manning and Leaf there. And like, you know, Randy Moss coming in at 21st pick here, straight into the lineup, straight into the best Vikings season that they'd had up until, well, all-timer, really, you know, going 15-1. I think the first team to ever go 15-1 and not win the Super Bowl because of Gary Anderson missing his first kick all season in that in that conference championship game. But like Randy Moss just coming in here off the belt and just scoring like record all-time, you know, touchdowns, record all-time yards at this point for the Minnesota Vikings as well. So again, it just shows kind of the benefits of the draft, but also the flaws of it in some ways. That you know, people that can be picked high actually, you know, can be false friends in some way, and there's people there who are lurking under the surface overall. And obviously, Matty and Benno, you're not going to give us a waxing lyrical and detail on like the NFL at all, but like, what are your thoughts as people who are like fans of other sports of like the idea of a draft? Do you like when you hear of it working in this way, is it something that you think's a positive? Is it something that you feel like what the fuck are they doing? Like, does it like?
It's funny when Liam said before, like, a lot of people don't understand how the draft works, and all I could think of was WWE, because that's absolutely the case, isn't it? Triple H never watched the NFL in his life and doesn't get it. Vince never got it before him, and that's why they can't like recreate it for what they do. I think it's almost like it's always been interesting to me that like the Premier League is, if you use football as another example, extremely capitalist, and America, the biggest, most capitalist country in the entire world, has got a very communist, socialist way of doing their sports. You would think America, of all countries, would be the one where they would all throw money to each other, paying over the odds for players. And instead, they make it a fair system. They make it a reasonable system. They have trades and they have a draft. And it's like, and it's all because, like, unlike every other part of like American politics and money and all of that stuff, the billionaires involved don't want to lose their money, and the billionaires involved don't want to compete with each other. So they literally backdoor their way into like a communist way of doing it. But like the positive is, like, it gives you it's like, from the outside, it's an extra thing that you can watch and fantasy book and get excited about, like draft week or day, or as it's been the last few weeks or so. Like, that's as much as like the Prem's exciting when it comes to like transfer activity and stuff like that. Like, there isn't an equivalent to that, which is like a big event that everyone can look into every year. And yeah, that's like seems like a really cool thing from the outside.
See, the thing I don't get is, I need to ask you guys. So is it like whoever finishes bottom, do they get first draft pick? Is that how it literally works?
In theory, yes, that's the way it works. But you can like move draft picks as capital. So like you can give another team your number 1 draft pick for their number 3 and number 48th draft pick, or trade a player for a draft pick. So it acts as capital.
So say there was no relegation in the Prem. So it'd be like Sheffield United could pick like Haaland or Foden. Is that right? Is that how it generally works?
Yeah.
It's mind-boggling then, and if you put it like that, that is just mind-boggling to me. But as Benno said, it seems fair enough that like you get something for finishing. I know there's no stakes of going down and stuff, but for coming last, at least you get like some sort of like, positive. I don't know. Yeah. So
I often like fantasize about these scenarios where you used to have like Lilleshall, and all the best players would go to Lilleshall, and like there would be like there'd already be assigned to clubs and contracting clubs. But just imagine that, having like your draft day, and it's like Wayne Rooney's come through as like a 15-year-old at Everton, and it's like
that's one as well, yeah.
You've been drafted by Luton Town, and then seeing like Wayne Rooney's face like on the stage as he's got to go and play for Luton.
So is that what? So you can pick off the top teams, the best player in the league, but then is the like how many people from like what you're saying, CFL, I'm guessing is now? Are they ready to come through? Is there like 10 you can pick from there as well?
Well, the field you're picking from is the players that are coming out of college. So,
is that also okay?
Yeah, because it's always hard to fathom for some people how big college sports are in America. But college football's so massive. So the players at the end of the season in college can declare that they're leaving college and entering the NFL. So then when the draft comes, the pool that you're picking from are the players that have come out of college. So you'll have like all the players. People will rank all the players that come out of college, 1 to 300 in terms of how good they are, and then the best teams. The lower teams will get first pick to create parity more than anything in the league, isn't it? It's like, if you watch the NFL, it kind of goes against form the last 10, 15 years, but bad teams are not bad for really long, and good teams don't reign for really long either. I mean, Patriots and the Chiefs in recent years are probably the exceptions to the rules, but the way the system is built is for teams. Yeah. Because the NFL benefits, you're a bad team, you're not getting people into the stands. And then you've got a team that's there, that's got a half-filled stadium every Sunday. So you've kind of trying to create teams that appeal to get people in, for people to watch on TV. If you've got 5 teams that have all the best players on, you've got quite a few teams that are not going to contend or people want to watch or buy merchandise of, sort of thing.
Well, I think that's as much sport as Benno can take.
Unless it's wrestling, which he said is a sport, Gareth. So you know,
we'll plug our Patreon. There you go. Go and listen with Grappling with Philosophy if you want a bit more on that. But I've already called him our Gareth A. Davis, so maybe I'll call him our Bruno Brooks now or something like that as I hand over to Liam for our music. Hopefully that was equally as insulting.
Oh, no, I'll take that every day. Bruno Brooks, brilliant. Right, so here we go. 10-1 in the music. So top 40 countdown. Number 10, Let Me Entertain You, Robbie Williams. Number 9, How Do I Live, Leanne Rimes. 8, All My Life, Casey and Jojo. 7, La Primavera by Sash. 6, Found a Cure, Ultranate. 5, Truly Madly Deeply, Savage Garden. 4, Kiss the Rain, Billy Myers. 3, My Heart Will Go On, Celine Dion. 2, Turn It Up, Fire It Up, Busta Rhymes. And number 1, It's Like That, Run DMC versus Jason Nevins. Now, guys, personally, probably one of the weakest charts that we've done, I think, in terms of the songs that are in the top 10. But does anything stand out to anyone to begin with? Matty, starting with you. I know you're a big Kiss fan and a big Robbie Williams man. Music video where Robbie Williams is dressed up as a member of Kiss must have really appealed to you.
Put your cock away, Matty. Put your cock away.
I wasn't a Robbie Williams guy around this time, Liam, when I was, 11, 12 years of age. But over the years, yeah, he has worn me down, Robbie Williams. And I do appreciate, how big of a star he was and the music. And the Netflix doc was good. I enjoyed that, him going back, looking at all the footage himself. But this is one of his better hits, shall we say, proper, it is Robbie Williams, essentially, isn't it? It's the just in your face, the video, as you say, just that he just embodied that. I know Gareth's probably looking at me here because I'm looking away trying to get me 40, and I know you're not going to be a Robbie guy, but this is the epitome of Robbie Williams, just that entertainer. I know it's in the title, but it just used it, Gareth. It screams in. I prefer it. I know Angels was a good one as well, but this was more in for me, just a bit in your face and up and at him. But Liam, to be fair, to throw it right back at you, mate, I had you down as a Kiss the Rain fan, Billy Myers. Come on, you must be liking that one.
Coventry's finest, Billy Myers. Bit of a one-hit wonder. No, not necessarily. No, not a big fan.
Oh, okay, fair enough. No, misjudge you there, mate. Sorry.
Not a big fan. I mean, I'm all for a woman with a guitar with a one-hit wonder in the charts. I mean, Sophie B. Hawkins, Amy Grant. I love all that, but not necessarily Billy Myers. No, I can't really say this was one for me. Gareth, looking at the charts, it's as weird as this sounds, it's a very pop-orientated charts. There's not much in the way of bands, guitar bands, or rock bands, or hip-hop, or, Sash is in there, but not much in the way of dance music of the time. Does anything here stand out as you remembering as something you liked at the time?
No, and I think it's really interesting because, my immediate thoughts as I'm looking at this, I'm doing a call back to one of the points that you made earlier in the show, Liam, was around 98 being this odd middle ground kind of thing, really, where there was, I suppose, culturally, there was a lot of change going on from what it was maybe 2 years previously, 2 to 4 years previously to then what came. And I think that's something that's represented here, right down to even when I looked at the list and I saw Ultranate and I saw Sash, and I was like, and then it wasn't free and it wasn't Encore and Foie kind of thing. Yeah. It was other songs kind of thing. So it was these artists and it was it's them. Oh, but it's not them kind of thing. It was all these things that don't resonate as much. And then, I think when you look at the list, you've got those kind of things bleeding through where you've got, things like a Leanne Rimes and you've got a Celine Dion, obviously tied into Titanic and things like that is a bit more pop and a bit more kind of sugary sweet and things like that coming in here up against that element that I think we talked about on the last show is where you're starting to get kind of probably an element of hip hop kind of bleeding into the mainstream a little bit more with some of the songs here, where you've got obviously like the Busta Rhymes tune with the Knight Rider theme and things like that resonated because of the Knight Rider theme with me at this time period. Obviously, the Run DMC Jason Evans track was massive at the time, absolutely everywhere, and things like that. Like that was just like the tune of this time period as well. Whereas the other stuff feels like secondary, and I was probably quite surprised to see like Rob Williams as low as number 10, because I'm like struggling with time periods in my head. I think he was still on the come up here, wasn't he? Kind of thing. I think he'd been kind of almost like he'd had that rejected period, and I think probably this Let Me Entertain You Here was probably the start of the rise, really. So
Angels was before this, Gareth. Angels, you built him up, and then, but you're right. He comes in like when it gets to like 2000, that album like Rock DJ and Something Stupid in the Cold. That's when he was like you literally couldn't avoid them number ones every single he released. But I'll just push back a bit, guys. To be fair, I didn't mind this top 10. I mean, Robbie Williams does a job. How Do I Live? Liam Rhymes. Classic tearjerker. You've got All My Life, Casey and Jojo, another unbelievable tearjerker.
Never heard it.
You've never heard that?
Never, really? Never. Wow.
Come on, Gareth. Benno,
no. Honestly, I put that tune on. I was like, I've got no idea what this is.
That is like, Gareth, that's wild. Ultranate there didn't know she had a follow-up to Free, to be honest with you. Truly, madly, deeply. I know there's wrestling connection to that song, but that's an all-time fucking ballad for me. And Celine Dion, My Heart Will Go On, the song will go on. I mean, you couldn't avoid that, could you? Like, how many weeks at number one was that? And that's one that, even if you don't like it, I've just kind of got to appreciate that song as well, which I'll openly admit on that, because it's, the iconicness of the song. So I think it's quite, as it more ballady, like I agree with that, but not too bad at all. This top 10 for me, guys.
The one track I would say stands out in this above all else, probably to no surprise of any, is Busta Rhymes. In a chart that seems to lack anything adventurous and a bit different, I think Turn It Up, Fire Up, Busta Rhymes, from the song itself to the music video to Busta Rhymes as a personality, was really fresh at the time. I think music was entering a time, hip-hop music specifically was entering a time, it was a post-Biggie and Tupac era. If you look at the bigger hip-hop albums or the hip-hop singles of the time, it was a lot of Puff Daddy produced stuff, so Puff Daddy, Mace, pop, R&B, hip-hop.
Yeah.
That hip-hop was kind of lacking that foothold of stuff that would get into the charts, that wouldn't necessarily have done so the years before. Hip-hop, on a more general basis, was very much siding towards R&B, a more palatable, radio-friendly sound at this point. Do you agree with that, Benno, or do you see it differently at that point?
It's an interesting time, because I feel like I'd only got into hip-hop the year before, in 97, and unfortunately, through exactly what you're talking about, Puff Daddy and Mace and the shiny suits and Will Smith, and then that kind of like, by the time 1998 comes round, I'm hardcore into my hip-hop, and then I'm anti everything that could possibly make the charts, and I'm protective over it. It feels like my own thing, to the point where like it shocked me a little bit here. Like, I didn't realise like Turn It Up, Fire It Up did that well. I didn't realise it was number 2 at any point. Like, Busta Rhymes is almost someone who like I only appreciated later in life. I almost feel like at this point in time, I thought of him as not even really a rapper. Like, he felt like more of because he was so into like the costuming, and he put all the effort into the videos. He was a gimmick, wasn't he? Really, he actually felt like a pop star more than he did a rapper. And then obviously as I got older, we're like, oh yeah, there's him in the De La Soul video, or there's him Tribe, or there's him, Raekwon used to hang around with him in the early 90s, and I understood later that he had that hip-hop credibility. But I reckon in 1998 I would have seen him almost as like a pop act, if that makes sense. And like he was like, if somebody liked him, it was like, well, they don't like hip hop, they like Busta Rhymes. Like, to me, that was like, it was an other than, or even like better example, it's the number 1 here, Run DMC. It's like that. Like, to me, that's not number 1 because of Run DMC. I think the majority of people out alone in 1998 who like that no pun intended, would have seen it as just like, oh, it's that club song and it's got some rap on it. Like the name Run DMC would mean nothing to them to why that was good. If anything, it was an anomaly. It wasn't a number one because it was Run DMC. It was a number one because it fit the dancey period of the time. So it almost feel like, you had to be that way different to be the exception that made it like this high in the charts.
But yeah, that Run DMC Jason Nevins track is, I think at the time, it, as you say, it was a novelty in the fact of this is a song that exists, that's been remixed to become more palatable for a wider audience. Well, it's wild saying that now, because if you listen to mainstream radio, literally everything in the top 10 is a song from years before that has been remixed or remastered to fit a new song. Just going back on the point of Busta Rhymes, when doing this list and doing the research for it, and you saying about how you didn't realise Busta Rhymes was as prolific as he was. In the UK alone, Busta Rhymes has had 9 songs in the top 10.
Wow.
It's
that like 02 period where where it was commercial, wasn't it? Rap was just on the chart. He had a few days, the ones with Mariah and all that. He had a good few top 10s when he Pasta Cavassier as well as another one and stuff that
that song with Linkin Park as well, Matty.
Oh, I was going to mention that bad one, that Liam. Not a fan of that one. Just didn't mesh well. You think he would as well, but I didn't like that one.
But yeah, but more generally, as I was saying about hip hop, you've coming out of the Big in Tupac world, the Eminem and 50 Cent, who would probably carry the baton from underground hip hop that becomes popular, haven't quite manifested. So you're in that little. Jay-Z isn't the star yet for who he becomes. So you do have this kind of void in terms of that respectable rap and hip hop artists that are in the charts.
And the American media are desperate to make it that way. Tupac and Biggie gone, well, there's DMX, there's Jay-Z. Like, they're trying to anoint those guys in that role, but it feels forced. It always felt odd, like, at the time, I put, like, the American chart on, and it'd just be a complete world of difference. Because they were making it to an extent there, but they weren't big worldwide names to that point, were they, at that point?
And I think with me as well, that with the deaths of Biggie and Tupac, it kind of felt the media was presenting that as like the end point for rap music. Like, this is the end point. You know, kind of like with Kurt Cobain's death, with grunge music, it was like, that's where we bookmark the grunge period. I think hip hop was very much like that with Biggie and Tupac. And what happened, that they didn't really want to get behind hip hop. Maybe it was seen as too dangerous to anoint another artist. I mean, close to yourself here, Benno. But in terms of like, if you look at the members of the Wu-Tang Clan around this time, a lot of them are veering off into more popular, mainstream songs. You know, ODB's on the Bullworth soundtrack, looking, making money. You know, Public Enemy's doing the soundtrack for He Got Game. The Spike Lee film, you know.
Great song, though.
It's absolutely fantastic, isn't it? But there is a deviation that it's hip hop kind of took a step back before it stepped forward again at this point in time.
Yeah, because that's the other thing I thought you were going to say about like modern now, whereas like, I mean, you look at a top 10, everything's got an element of hip hop in it. Everything, like even like the most pop song has probably got a hip hop producer on it, or somebody you can do like hip hop tracks. Whereas we're in an awkward stage here where like that cool 90s era has kind of ended, and we haven't quite figured out what we're going to be. You know, Dr. Dre hasn't made his comeback yet. Eminem isn't on the scene yet. So we're in that weird point where you were still looked at as weird because you were into hip hop. Like if you said you like Run DMC, people probably wouldn't even know you meant that song that was number one on the, because you couldn't. That was the other thing I was going to say about that one. You could not get away from that song. It was constantly everywhere. The breakdancing video was constantly on at all times as well. Wasn't it a story that apparently, like, I think didn't Run DMC, despite it not really being them that made it a number one, I think they got the majority of the money from it, or there was like a royalties issue with it with Jason Nevins, and he never really made money. Because they were like, all you did was add a couple of hi-hats and nothing else, so fuck you, that's our song. I hope that's true anyway, because that's actually also true at the same time. So I remember that.
And like you're saying about music videos there, this is one of the few charts I take away one or two. There's some iconic music videos that you always remember in this. You know, as you say, that Run DMC versus Jason Evans. Everyone knows that breakdancing video. As we said, the Busta Rhymes video. Obviously, the Celine Dion, the Titanic, Savage Garden, Truly Madly. You know, everybody remembers a lot of these songs, and it was very much the age of the music video and probably the infancy of music television as we would know it, you know, ring in the box and play your favorite video and stuff like that, that you would see these videos 3-4 times an hour because people wanted to see them. That it was very much, music had become so much more of a visual medium as much as it was as an audio medium, that people wanted to see the videos while listening to the tune. And, you know, investment and money were put into videos at this point. That they were like mini movies. I mean, you know, it's probably not the right period to talk about it, but you look at some hip hop videos at the time, Puff Daddy videos and stuff. You know, the investment and the cinematography and that better than some movies and TV shows.
Hype Williams, really.
Exactly. Exactly. You know, Missy Elliott around the time as well, Busta Rhymes. You know, that was it. You know, shiny puffer jackets and steel walled rooms. You know, there was this calling card. But as we move off the charts, anything else stick out to anybody?
I was just going to say, old man in the room. So people were phoning up to see videos because they wanted to see.
That was the box, mate. That was the gimmick.
And then you channel you later on.
Box music television that you control.
Legendary.
Yeah. So what happened was, Gareth, at the bottom of the screen, there was numbers running, 3-digit numbers next to the name of a song. You'd ring up a number, then with your keypad dial this number, 3-digit number, and it would join the queue on the channel. Yeah, brilliant stuff.
It drive me mad that because people would do that to get and they pick it's like that, Run DMC, and it's like, just give it 10 minutes. Someone else is going to put it on. Like, why would you waste money? At least pick something that's a bit off. You know, that's probably not going to get on. I'm absolutely the person you're talking about, Liam, because at this point where music videos are becoming so important and so much money's going behind it. I think from 1998 to 2003, all I did, if I was at home, I'd have the music channels on. I'd have when MTV became a thing. I'd have that on 24 hours a day. It was the thing that I'd have on, and I'd be switching back and forth rather than paying the money, waiting for the video that I wanted to watch to come on. I'd make little tapes of it and everything. It was it became big money, didn't it?
Especially, it was a for people who were maybe not around at the time, it was a non-YouTube world as well.
I was about to say that, Liam. No YouTube then. No YouTube.
Any sort of video medium that you could go online and watch, it just didn't exist, did it? You know, as wild as it sounds, people used to ring into radio stations to request to hear a song, because Spotify and so didn't exist at the time.
Got it. We say it every time. Well, I do. We've got it too well now. Everyone's got it. The generation thing. We've got it.
That's the thought to me.
Yeah, we have.
Well, we always talk about it on the wrestling shows of we'll say the difference in the time periods, and we'll go that was only 2 years or stuff like that. But I think of this only 2 years prior to this, 3 years prior to this. I'm watching MTV and it's got all good guitar music on it, and I'm fucking banging a VHS in and pressing record, in the same way I was talking about TFI Friday there, to record videos and stuff. I've got them on demand anyway. I've got everything that I want to watch on that VHS kind of thing. But literally only 2 years later, it's phone in and do that, and the difference between me being 17 and 19 or something like that, nothing in reality, but culturally. What a shift kind of thing, because I just have no memory or experience of this idea of picking up your phone and requesting a song. It's just not a thing that I know. It's wild.
Still at the same time though, even though that was happening, I would still sit there with it. That was the other thing. I'd sit there with the tape, waiting for the video I wanted to try and record it, and then you'd miss the first 30 seconds, so you'd wait again and wait for the next one. It reminds me of a conversation we had off air, Liam, when we were looking at those mailbox letters, and we were joking about on there where people would be Wings was an example. It was only on twice a week, and somebody wrote a letter to the mailbox when do we get back to episode 98, which we were on the last run, and Ed was I've got got bad news for you, mate. It's only on twice a week, so you're gonna have to wait about 45 weeks to get there because you had to do that because you couldn't get it on DVD or tape and you couldn't download it anywhere. So you would just literally have to sit there and be okay. In about 3 months' time, the telly's gonna catch up to where I am. It looks like a bigger version of the same problem with music videos.
Quickly moving away from the music, but completely as you were saying, Matty, you're going to love this. On Paramount, when they were showing Seinfeld, this is before Seinfeld was on DVD, because Seinfeld was one of the last things that had its first run on DVD. After like everything else came out, Seinfeld was one of the later ones. I would record Seinfeld on the Paramount Comedy Channel every night to get every episode of Seinfeld. And I don't know if you remember this from Mailbox at the time. Paramount didn't have the tapes to one episode of Seinfeld. So I had to trade 3 wrestling films with a guy in Australia to send me a copy of this. Send me a copy of this tape. I cannot for the life remember what the episode was. And he sent me this one episode of this, and I had the complete Seinfeld collection. Only when the video came from Australia, I realised it was like in Australian NTSC. And I couldn't play it.
Oh, yeah, regions and all that, Liam.
Yeah, so, you know, it was just like a complete colour bar. It was like a colour bar. So I then had to send it off to somebody, a tape trader. Convert it, and sending me back on a PAL tape.
I love it.
Love that,
as you say,
that's fucking brilliant.
As you say, kids don't know how good they have it these days.
They don't. Yeah, you really don't.
But yeah, back to music. If nothing else in the charts sticks out to anybody, a few albums that were released around this time in April 1998. I'm just going to say mine. Looking at the list, I mean, we spoke about hip hop and about how hip hop in the mainstream was very watered down and palatable at this time. One of the big albums at the time that I loved when I got older was Big Pun's Capital Punishment. Absolutely loved that album record. I thought Big Pun was a great record. Also, Massive Attack's Mezzanine, great album. That kind of like blurred a lot of genres at the time. An album that I've came to appreciate as I've got older, but standalone, a great British album.
I'm laughing in absolute joy, Liam, that I just knew you'd love Massive Attack. I just knew. Like, I've never ever, like, they were a bit like, I just did obviously get them when I was younger or whatever. Never actually went back and listened to them. But now I know you've confirmed that you're a fan. I'll give them a go, mate, just for you.
I'm not saying that I'm somewhat, typecast, but I did get a message about 2 months ago from a friend I haven't seen for about 12 months, and he messaged me and says, I bet you're upset Pitchfork's finished. I was like, yeah, to be fair, yeah, probably.
Massive Attack was like hip-hop that your dad could like. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's like my dad would accept that as real music. And I'd be like, but Dad, it's hip-hop. It's just basically instrumental hip-hop. It's the same thing. And he just wouldn't accept it, that it was part of like that.
Are they Teardrop? That's them, isn't it? Yeah, I know that one, yeah.
Unfinished Symphony.
Unfinished Symphony. But yeah, as you say, Massive Attack was very much that. Another album a bit earlier, Portishead. That was like hip hop, that your dad, as you say, your parents would like, sort of thing. And also, just to mention, at this time as well, in an album that got released, Boards of Canada, Music Has the Right to Children. Fantastic album that was released. Not something that I listen to often in this day and age, but like when I did a lot of work from home and stuff, I really got into like electronica to have in the background and stuff. And Boards of Canada, that album is a great album.
Background, yeah.
Great album.
So the opening to that's 86 Pontiac, isn't it? I'm pretty sure. It's that one. I used to play that every time I get out of my car in the morning, play that. It'd always be the first song I put on. I back you on that, but I was just to go back, Big Pun's Capital Punishment, like one of the great albums of all time. I think I got that a few years later.
Yes.
And didn't really understand like Big Pun's place and things. It's kind of more of a mixtape, isn't it? Than
of course,
than an album. But it's got so many bangers, like Beware, which is what was it Loki and Homicide both used it at different points. It's got that on it. There's the track with Inspector Deck on there. Obviously, Still Not a Player is like the big one that everyone knows. But it's got so many great songs on it. It's like I'll still play that today. I think that's one of the great hip hop albums.
Yeah, it's great album. Anything else around this time for music? Anybody want to touch on, Gareth?
From the albums, I just have to throw Gomez, Bring It On, in as well. Like at the time, I think with them being like a Southport band as well, and moving like based at Liverpool at the time, like proper seeing them on the come up, like small gigs sort of thing in the build up to this album. That guy's voice, just like the whole like the bluesy, soulful, it definitely like jumped out as something that was like a bit different. And like they're a band that, okay, like they're still hanging about now and things like that. But I think around this time period, had a lot of buzz about them, and definitely jumped out when it came to like live acts that you seen when you go. You know, when I was going to see a lot of live guitar bands at this time, they felt like exciting and they felt new and they felt different. And then again, because the fact that they were local, they were sort of someone that you could kind of like felt like you were getting behind a bit more, and probably someone who didn't maybe achieve the potential that they maybe probably had in the earlier days. But that first album, still a fucking banger, I think.
Yeah, very much so. Not necessarily a band I would listen to, but very much one of those bands I can imagine that as Britpop was dying out, the search for a Britpop band was on for everybody. That bands like this really did get missed because it wasn't the consciousness of music at the time, and especially like mainstream music, that a band like Gomez didn't get the push that they would have before Blur and Oasis, because they didn't sound like, and that it was on to the next thing, that they did get lost. But Matty, anything of the time album-wise that sticks out to you? I would also mention one of my favourite albums when I got a little bit older was Pitch Shifter's album, www.pitchshifter.com. And anybody who's not familiar with Pitch Shifter, they were a metal band that influenced a lot of like scratching, samples, hip hop, like breaks and stuff, electronica, really ahead of their time band. I mean, the album's called www.pitchshifter.com, which is aged like, 2-day-old milk, hasn't it? But at the time, only. Yeah, but at the time it was like, what's this? They've named after. Well, what is this? Can we click on this? You know what I mean? So yeah, that's another album that stuck out to me.
I'll have to give that one a go then, Liam. You give me the hard sell there.
I wouldn't say. I know my description probably made it sound like new metal, but it's a bit more. It's a bit more varied than that. I mean, you
I was looking there for the new metal albums around the time, but the closest one's Korn, August 98. So we're not going to go and follow the leader. So it's a couple of months down the line. So I won't go off script for this show, guys. Might do that at other shows, Ben, but not this one, mate. We're staying to the good script there.
No, that's all good. So if nobody else has got anything to say regarding music or want to touch on anything around this time, Benno, carry on.
Got to throw in there, mate. We have to mention it. Heavy metal, Killer Priest, the IWC Wu-Tang album, if there ever was one. Like ever since BIBLE was on on Jizz's Liquid Swords, that was waited for with bated breath for that album to come out. And even I think to this day, people will talk about it as like that's a perfect Wu album that deserved like more credit than it got at the time. It's absolutely the IWC choice. Yeah,
it's I think one of those albums that had such hype when it came out that over time it's kind of been forgotten about. And I think Killer Priest in general, he's somewhat seen as one of the further out members of Wu, but I think that kind of clouds a lot of judgment in terms of how good the record actually is. I think it's a really strong Wu-Tang Clan album. Yeah.
It doesn't have deserve the better career. Like it's that old wives' tale. Like might not know this, Matty, but during when Wu-Tang were about pretty much ready to blow, there was one more spot left in the group, and it was either gonna go to Master Killer or Killer Priest, and they both did gave them a verse, and they went with the Master Killer verse, and the rest was history. Master Killer became the 9th/10th member of Wu-Tang Clan, and Killer Priest does this one album that's got all this buzz, and now he's on Instagram with 500 followers or something, you know what I mean? Doing occasional gigs where he'll throw a Wu-Tang logo on it because it might sell a few more tickets. And how close it could have been to him, a lot of the hardcore Wu-Tang fans would like him to be an official member.
And probably one of the few albums that I own that prominently features the sound of a didgeridoo.
Brilliant.
But no, that probably concludes the music for April 1998 then. So the last of the pillars we move on to is movies. And Benno, do you want to move on and tell us the 10-1 for movies of this period?
I love this. lot of crossover as well with the music from soundtrack to cinema. A couple where I'd say there's a great one of the great 1-2 combos in this list. But yeah, going from 10 to 1, we've got number 10, LA Confidential. Number 9, Flubber. Number 8, The Man in the Iron Mask. Number 7, Good Will Hunting, classic. Number 6, Sphere, which was a film I didn't recognise until I dug into the list. Number 5, As Good as It Gets, which I imagine people have a lot of takes on. Number 4, Anastasia. Number 3, and basically what's going on in my house at this point, Mouse Hunt. Number 2, Jackie Brown. And number 1, of course, because it's 1998, Titanic, the most 1998 film. I've got a couple of other ones. I was looking around the other charts in April, but I think we've got to start there with the number 1, lads. Titanic. It's another one where JP would love to have the conversation. Where it literally was a cultural it was everything, wasn't it? It was the film that everyone saw. I distinctly remember my mum dragging us to the cinema, and we never went to cinema as a family. And it was purely because everyone else was going, because Titanic was this bigger than anything film, bigger than cinema, just like literally couldn't go anywhere without either seeing an advert for Titanic or hearing Celine Dion from the charts, because it was that 1-2 combo, wasn't it? The two. I don't know what was more popular at the time, but yeah, is it actually a good film? Is the other thing, is the question with Titanic? Like it feels like, I was thinking about it today because I was coming home from work and listening to the top 10 in music, and I actually spent 5 minutes just riding along the pavement listening to Celine Dion, My Heart Will Go On. I don't think I've ever listened to that song in full, but I was already going, so I couldn't turn it off. But it was occurring to me like what a obvious market employ the entire thing was, sad song, check, like the casting, down to like, oh, it's a love story, guess where it takes place? The Titanic. Everyone knows the Titanic. English people, American people, people in China, they know that story, so let's take our drama and put it there. It feels so studio manufactured and it feels so put together, but it fucking worked, didn't it? It was just a gigantic success, despite, I would argue, saying, Liam, it's not necessarily a good film.
Well, on this panel of the other pillars, I'm willing to bet I know which person absolutely hates it and which person likes it. Gareth, similar views to Gladiator do you have with Titanic?
Yeah, like, I don't think I saw Titanic until Sadie wanted to watch Titanic, so like it was my obvious state at this time of being like 19-year-old to just reject this outright, and the idea of watching it was like the worst possible filth that I could possibly do, especially with that fucking song being everywhere as well. It was just like, I'm just not having this at all. And then like, so I genuinely think I was probably about like 38 when I first saw Titanic, because Sadie wanted to watch it, and like, yeah, it's not a good film.
Oh, Valentine's Day.
Valentine's Day. See what I mean? It'll be in the pair, like a boardroom sat together and manufactured. This is before AI. They put together every little detail of it. To that point, though, Gareth, I think you've instigated the memory in me. When I went to see it in the cinema with my mum and that, I wouldn't sit with them, because I was too embarrassed to be doing that thing everyone else was doing and watching it with the whole family. Titanic. I wanted to be like that cool teenager sat in the corner, pretend that I wasn't watching. To be fair, I did watch it, but I still refuse to like it.
Well, to be fair though, can I just see that iconic scene, I'm the king of the world, which, Stone Cold Steve himself has recreated on Raw when he was at the front of his pickup truck saying, I'm the king of the world, and Kurt Angle beat the shit out of him, so forth. I'd have to get that in there. Mentioning good old Steve on here, Gareth.
Oh, well, if it's good enough for Steve, I'd rather watch that one scene on WWE TV than watch the whole of Titanic again, because it became something that my daughter got obsessed with, so I ended up watching it multiple times, like in my later years.
I remember that period.
A bane, like a bane on my life, but like, honestly, like, it just makes you question society, doesn't it? Like this, like just being like as big as like it does. It makes you think, like, what do people think? That people think this is good. People think this is emotive. People think this is something that they can connect to, and things like that. You're like, fucking hell, like go out and...
No, but I think Benno's nailed it, Gareth. You're right, I agreed slightly with you there, but it's the fact of, I don't think everyone did have that connection. It was what Benno said. The parents seeing everyone else do it, that they couldn't be left out. Do you know what I mean? So that got them in more than actually what they were going to see. You know what I mean? Although that obviously sells itself as well. But it was the fear of being left out, I think, with certain stuff like that comes around every so often, that it just does sweep everyone for that reasoning too.
It was a cultural moment, wasn't it? For best or worse, like.
I've never watched it outright in one sitting. I've seen it all, but in staggered segments. Like I've seen an hour, and then I've seen that bit. What and then that bit? Yeah, I just never. And
it was Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves on Steads.
But it's DiCaprio, though, isn't it? It's big stars, isn't it?
Big star vehicle for him. Massive,
It shows how big he is. He's got 2 films in the charts, hasn't he? Man with an Iron Mask is DiCaprio.
Oh, of course, yeah. Him too. Big star at the time. I mean, what else stands? Oh, go on, then.
I was just going to say, going back to a few episodes of time past, has anybody watched the sequel, Titanic 2 yet?
I think JB has. We need to hear for that.
Titanic 2 Electric Boogaloo.
Titanic 2 went on the 100th anniversary of the Titanic. They choose to get on a ship again, and guess what happens?
Unbelievable.
They are building another one, aren't they, in real life? They're building a new Titanic, aren't they, in real life? Yeah. I heard that on the radio the other day.
Jesus.
And the same mouth breathers who went to see this will be the mouth breathers who go and visit that 100%. Like that little fucking submarine thing, innit? But yeah, I mean, what else stood out for you guys? Like Jackie Brown being number 2, I didn't realise it did that well. No, feels like the forgotten Quentin Tarantino film. It's like the bastard child of the Quentin Tarantino film.
The IWC one for me, though. I mean, I've never seen it, but everyone you hear who's seen it is high on it, which I'm guessing you are, Liam, for sure.
I'm probably not as big as a fan of it as you imagine. I wouldn't say it's one of Tarantino's better films. I think I mean, you can accuse Tarantino of this a lot, but it is very much style over substance for me, for a lot of it. I'm not the biggest fan of it. I think it's a good film, but nowhere near as some people say it is. But that's just me with that. But no, I don't think it's necessarily one of his better films.
It was interesting because when I saw it on the list, I thought, Christ, I haven't watched this for 20 years, and I really wanted to watch it again, like in the build-up to this, and I've not got round to it. But it almost just felt like one of those things at the time where it had sort of like, I don't know, like Tarantino maybe believed his own strength too much at this point or something like that, like believed his own hype too much kind of thing. And I vividly remember kind of like all the stuff around like Pam Grier and like the like harking back to blaxploitation movies and things like that. And it was almost like kind of like an education in a lot of ways. Really was things that then came out in like magazine articles around this film and things like that made you sort of like go back and like check out like all the stuff and things like that. But it was one of those that I definitely remember at the end of it feeling like, oh, that wasn't Pulp Fiction, was it? Or that wasn't Reservoir Dogs, really. Like, it just left you feeling a little bit kind of like it was, I don't want to say a parody of a Quentin Tarantino film, but it was certainly kind of like getting into that, trying a bit too hard stakes, maybe.
Yeah, run out of ideas, reuse a lot of the same actors. Yeah, I can feel that on it. Outside of that, I think it's a pretty weak list. I think like there's not a huge amount that stands out. Good Will Hunting's a film I really like. I don't know if anybody else has got strong feelings on that, but like that'd probably be of that list my favourite film.
I think Good Will Hunting's one of those films that for like about 10 years was the best film ever, wasn't it? On every list you saw, that it really was that film that critics loved. That it was like, this is one of the greatest films ever made. I think that's kind of died off a bit now with it. So it's like Shawshank Redemption, that A Good Will Hunting were very popular films at the time. I think it's a good film. I think the film that sticks out for me on here, which I'd probably say is my favourite film on the list, is LA Confidential. Yeah. I haven't seen it for a while, but I remember it being a great film, and it also features one of the people who if anyone ever asked me who's one of the most underrated actors in Hollywood, Guy Pearce is always top of my list in terms of every role he plays. I think he's fantastic, and I think LA Confidential is a really good film, and not one you hear much about. I don't think these days. It's not held in the same regard as a lot of films around this time. For me, it's on a par with, say, something like Usual Suspects. Around that period, I think LA Confidential is by far and away for me the best film on this list.
I love LA Confidential. I think it's a fantastic film, and the big problem I've got with it is Kevin Spacey, obviously, kind of thing. And
I was going to say,
I remember the last time I watched it feeling I love this. It's almost like going back and watching a bit of Brit Rest or something like that from the Boom period, or something where you want to enjoy it but you can't, kind of thing, and still loving so much of this film, but then having that kind of stain on it. I think it's one of the worst worst elements to it. But to me, it's just, I love that I don't know, modern film noir done well kind of thing. I really like, and I really enjoy that, and I absolutely echo what you're saying there about Guy Pearce as well in that film. What a performance that is from Guy Pearce in that. That's one of the there's not many films that I can think of that I would happily watch on an annual basis, but LA Confidential's definitely one of them. One that jumps out for me on this list that I remember loving at the time, but I legit don't even know if I've even watched since then, is As Good as It Gets. And I'm a big Jack.
I love Jack.
I'm a big Jack Nicholson guy, and I thought he was hilarious, brilliant, and I thought it was a fantastic, different performance from him in this film. And obviously, you're a big Jack guy as well, Matty. Fan of this one.
Yeah, this is one that I've only seen once or twice though that I need to rewatch. I'm more older, One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest and The Border is another old one and stuff like that. So I like them types. But this just seemed what was he doing before this? He done a few Sean Penn ones around this time, didn't he? That really didn't hit off. And the last time I think you seen him was Wolf maybe in '94 was that guy? Stuff like that. Yeah, I know. So this was kind of his return to the big time, and this was a big hit though, wasn't it? This was a big smash hit.
Yeah.
And didn't he win the Oscar for this as well?
I was going to say, he got best actor for this, didn't he?
Yeah, so this was his return to form per se after a few stinkers and a few maybe straight to DVDs or straight to VHS. It would have been even before this, wouldn't it? So yeah. But I need to go and rewatch this again, because as you say, I remember it being a bit different for him at the time. Still got that Jack charm and that dryness and all that you'd associate with him, but mixed it up slightly as well. So yeah, I need to go back and watch this one, mate.
Just that charisma oozing, it made it believable that he there in that situation as well. That with Helen Hunt as well, cracking performance from her as the antithesis to him for a certain point until that charm takes over.
But the best worker as well, Gareth, because if we can go for his Batman in his contract, he literally got paid from the minute he shut his front door. So he'd clock on and he literally got paid there, and he got the time off to go to the Lakers, is it really, to sit front row for the Lakers. That was all part of his contract. The ultimate worker, mate. Legend.
Well, I was going to say, it's a race to the bottom, is it, for the rest of the films here?
Go on, Matty. Go on, Matty. Mouse Hunt.
Yeah.
Was it a mouse hunt? You think I'm big on it because Lee Evans, isn't it?
Number 3, though. Number 3. That's how big a star Lee Evans was.
You should draw, mate. You should draw, I tell you. But no, on this, Benno, you disdain for flubber when you announce the actual win.
Shite in it. It's just crap in it. American Mouse Hunt, mate.
No, I mean, you're right. Flubber was one. I remember, I avoided it, but my little nieces. So I would have been about 12. So my nieces would have been about 7 and 5 at the time, and they used to watch this all the time and love it. And I was just never got my head around it. It was just. It was, and another one, Sphere. You said there, no flip flopping here, but that was a big budget though. Sphere with Sharon Stone, Dustin Hoffman. Oh, sorry, I'm jumping ahead here. Sorry, did you put Flubber on there, Benno? Go on, get to it, mate.
That's what's killing my internet connection. I apologise if I'm a few seconds behind everyone. Go on.
Oh, but yeah, Gareth, was this one like you were actively avoiding at the time, Flubber, or was it on your radar?
I remember it. I remember it from like magazines and stuff like that. But obviously, it wasn't in there. It wasn't the thing that many 19-year-olds were going out there to watch any time period. It's just
more
funny,
embarrassed than me at Titanic.
It's just funny you're talking about like mouse hunts, because like when you say like Lee Evans though at this time period, like I remember going like HMV, going Virgin Megastore at this time period. Lee Evans live VHS. Yeah. They were always fucking up. They were, you know, they'd always have it in chart order, wouldn't they? That you could buy like stuff. Lee Evans live things were always fucking dominating the top of them charts. Never got it personally, kind of thing, but people fucking loved him, didn't they? Like,
brilliant, mate. I'm big on Lee Evans. Like, only them first, like the first box set that he released of like the first 5 or 6 shows.
Oh, here we go.
No, what's that?
Here we go. Demo in the 7-inch only. Yeah.
Only them IWC, them hidden gems, Liam. But then when he did get, as Gareth said, I was about to say he got commercial. He was commercial from the off. He got even bigger, didn't he? He was selling the O2 Arena out when it was like unheard of. Like his numbers, Benno, you're a numbers guy. Yeah. Go back and see his numbers, mate. They hold up now to any comedian. He did.
Sorry, Liam's laugh to that was the funniest thing I've heard all night.
I'm going to be fair to Lee Evans here. He had a great run of free films that he was in. That is just wild. Including Mouse Hunt, he was also in, during 97 and 98, The Fifth Element, and There's Something About Mary. How?
Mate, that crossover star we've always wanted from this country, Liam. Come on.
The power of VHS.
Yeah.
Well, I was going to throw in, if anyone's not getting anything on the other 10, before we get into like some other films that are coming out at the time, I noted that this was the month of the BAFTAs as well. Would you like to guess what cleaned up at the BAFTAs this April? I'll give you a clue. It won Best Film, won Best Actor in Leading Role, won Best Actor in a Supporting Role. British is your clue.
Trainspotting's way before this, isn't it?
Is it too late for the Full Monty?
Full Monty.
Yeah, Full Monty.
Still
the Full Monty train is still going. Like you talk about like Titanic being a cultural moment. Yeah. Full Monty. Like, we're still living through that now. There's still Full Monty live shows everywhere around the country, isn't there? And in London and Hippodrome, I think have one on it at all times. It's a fucking. You could not get away from that. It was in the papers.
I think it's good.
Telly.
Full Monty. I'm giving it a bit of credit here. It's not terrible. It's not. I guess from obviously what it's about and stuff, Ben. But it hit home more than a Titanic, though. It was the everyman, like we said before.
Yeah, it was just overdone. And then it became anyone can do it. So you can do a play with every man doing the strip act. Yeah. You can have loads of strip acts with just normal fellas. It became bigger than the film, did it? It became like a thing everybody wanted. It
got Hot Chocolate back in the charts, mate. I'm all for that big Hot Chocolate fella, yeah. And that scene in the post office queue. I mean, how iconic do you want? Is it? Give me them in the post office queue over Leo and Kate Winslet at the front of the Titanic any day.
Speaking of,
it was PCW.
Can I just bring this full circle? I have seen Full Monty stage show.
Have you?
I was dragged to a Full Monty stage show in Birmingham.
Dragged, of course, yeah.
Yeah. Well, do you want to guess who played the role that Denzel from Fools and Horses played in the stage show?
It wasn't Denzel from Fools and Horses, was it? No. Okay.
It's somebody we've already mentioned. No, it was Lewis Emmerich, commonly known as Mick Johnson from Brookside.
That is fantastic.
Big stars. I was going to say, elsewhere in the awards, basically, as far as like cleaning up goes, Romeo and Juliet. Speaking of, Leo did well as well. We were still living through that at the time. But any other films around this time that stand out to people? I was going to say, Liam, one you mentioned earlier, He Got Game, great soundtrack. Yep. Great. It was one of those films that was like we had Sky around this period. So like Sky Movies would literally show whenever that got to Sky Movies. I would assume 18 months to 2 years later, whatever the window was at that point, it would be on every 2 hours, and it's probably the film I've seen the most of in bits. Like, I think I saw the last 20 minutes first, then I saw the first 20 minutes, then I saw the bit in the middle, then I saw the bit in the middle again. I don't think I've ever actually seen that film in full, but I still think it's great. I'll love, mainly it's the soundtrack too, but it's an underrated Spike Lee one for me, that.
Yeah. It was very much something that I think Spike Lee was on a bit of a wane with his films, and Public Enemy probably weren't releasing their best work, so it kind of made sense for them both to come together. You know, they both helped out each other about 5-6 years earlier, didn't they? With Do the Right Thing. So it made sense. It made sense for them to do it again. But yeah, from what I can remember, good film. And as we said on the previous one, Denzel, this period, is just an absolute star, isn't he? You know, he's starting his run into being the biggest star in Hollywood, isn't he? And you know, that's another one of those films that is on his step to the way up. Yeah,
big film for Ray Allen as well. He's a shuttle himself. Other ones I had noted out around this time: U.S. Marshals, Big Lebowski, Hard Rain. Okay, other ones that were in the charts this month.
There was also a film I would like to mention that was really, really big during my formative years growing, and that's Wild Things. If anybody's seen that with Neve Campbell.
Is Denise Richards in that? Yeah. I know why you like that one, Liam.
great cast, great acting, great storyline. I don't know what you mean.
Is that Matt Dillon as well? Is that Matt Dillon? Yeah. See.
Another very underrated actor, Matt Dillon.
Yeah, always played that like sleazeball though well, didn't he, Liam? He had that just that look that he could pull off. But you know what I was going to say though, guys? You know, whenever you're on in future, Benno, seriously, we should have the UK top 10 and the US top 10 for the movies.
Oh yeah, I'm full America.
And the films, the films and the music.
Well, I've got a question here then, because in April '98, something knocked Titanic off the top of the US charts. Can anyone think what knocked it off the US charts at the top?
I think I know what it is, but I'll let the others have a guess.
Nothing we've named so far.
No.
98.
Big star involved. Big star.
Can I just ask? I'm going to ask this one question: is he a massive star according to Dave Meltzer?
It's a wrestler.
It is.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Okay.
I can't think of what that means. Matty, any guess?
Is it a wrestler involved?
No.
Put it this way: Dave Meltzer. If it's the film I'm thinking of, Dave Meltzer.
Lost in Space.
Yes.
I should have got it with the Dave Meltzer shout. Friends was big during this period, you know.
Ended a 15-week run of Titanic at number one.
Wow.
Lost in Space. Matt LeBlanc, big star.
Another drama.
Who cancelled Joey? Idiots.
That was the thing I noted when I was watching some of this stuff on, like I said, I got sidetracked watching adverts. Every second advert had either Jennifer Aniston in, or one of the other cast, or like Channel 4 was showing it, Sky was showing it, Paramount was showing it. It was fucking you couldn't avoid any of those. That doesn't shock me at all.
The one good thing I will say about Lost in Space, I was a big fan of the theme song by Apollo 440.
Oh, tune, Liam. Big tune, that lad. Big. But Benno, when you watch Friends, mate, as Gareth said there, you've got to do Joey after. You've got to do that spin-off show.
I did that at the time, you know. I literally tried. Yeah. It's rough. It had Thingy from Sopranos in it, didn't it? What you call Walter
Trey Mateo.
Yeah, Trey Mateo. That's it. Yeah. So I did try at the time. Wasn't great. But yeah, anything else on films, Gareth? Anything else you want to throw in there? Anyone got any other favourites from the period?
No, apart from the fact that I've never watched The Man in the Iron Mask because I have a claustrophobic fear of being stuck in an iron mask for the rest of my life. So I've never watched that on the basis that it sounds terrible.
I always find the 90s trailers really off-putting, like watching these back, you know, like the voiceover, like kind of like in a story in June in New York. And it's just like, I almost makes me not want to see the film. Like, I don't know. There's a very distinct way of doing trailers back then, wasn't there? That really stood out. But yeah, unless there's anything else on film? We go back to sports if you want. I did make some notes on the Crucible cricket tournament from is it cricket? No, snooker tournament from 1998 in Sheffield.
Bats and balls.
Yeah, apparently Stephen Hendry beat Jimmy White for England against India or whatever they do with that in that sport. Yeah, that's really good. That.
Well, Ben, you done your own work, mate. You tried. You tried.
I did a lot of homework for this. A lot of it.
Yeah, love it. But Gareth, he's hard faced, you know. The man in the eye mask. Sorry, I have to, Gareth. The old ones are the best, my friend.
Right, time to bring the curtain down.
I was gonna say, this is you guys' show. I'm stepping back.
Oh, am I going to do the outro after that? Okay, right now. Oh. Thanks everyone for being here, Benno. Thank you so much for substituting for JP.
That was a shift, that.
No, you've done brilliant, mate.
Respect to JP for like. Oh, being on the show, yes. Running the videos in the background was extremely stressful. There was loads of times where I couldn't hear you or you couldn't hear me, but we got there in the end. JP does a shift on these shows, so I'll never fill his boots, but I fulfilled a Make-A-Wish dream and got to be on time with you guys. Got to talk some hip-hop with Liam, which is always good as well. So yeah, lived up to every dream I wanted.
No, Ben, honestly, mate, you've been fucking brilliant.
Yeah, brilliant.
You've given us your time for 2 hours, 37 minutes. All you got to do now is edit some theme songs in, get it all nice and put it up and post it up for us, mate. So your work's not done, my friend.
Yeah, YouTube will give me no grief. I'm sure it'll go up first time. It's going to be great. Fucking hell. JP, come back.
No, but Gareth and Liam, always a pleasure, Liam, especially for putting the list together, mate. So we can never do this show without you being here and putting all of it together, mate. Always a blast. I know Gareth's the same, probably more than me. The eagerness and anticipation of when that list drops, Gareth, and then when you finally see it all in one, there's not a better feeling, is there, mate?
Oh, I love it. I opened that list and I was like punching the air. It was just brilliant. Like, it just picks the best stuff. Like, can't pick up Liam's list generation better than anymore. Like, absolute best. Like, and just like picking out so much good stuff to watch. Like, classic trip down memory lane. Love it.
No, it's absolutely. It's half the enjoyment. But I know personally, the thing I'm going to take from this episode is I'm going to watch Cole Thompson versus Chris Eubank again and try and spot a long-haired Gareth sitting in the Manchester Arena.
No, and all. You know, when this drops, people in our Discord, where you were in April 1998, share your stories, give us your views and what you liked, what you didn't like around this time period. And yeah, we'll be back in another 3 months' time with another episode, breaking down another month and another year in the time machine. And Benno, thank you again, my friend. Gareth, Liam, have a good one, and I'll see you all again soon. Bye-bye.
See ya.
Bye.